Queers. What's on the big gay agenda today, Theora?
Today, we are continuing our discussions of Blank the series, and we finally made it to season 2! Woo! Woo! My favorite episode. We've made it. The beginning of season 2. This episode is a journey.
So buckle up, because we're going to be here for a while.
Buckle up. Before we go any further, let's just hydrate for Faye now, because let's be real.
Okay. Yes, I feel like we're gonna need a break in the middle just to get more hydration for Faye.
Well, there's a lot of Faye to hydrate for in this particular episode. Please hydrate. Hydrate. There's a lot to hydrate for in this episode in particular. It's so good. I don't even know how many times I've seen this episode because it's so good. Okay, but before we get into all of that, quick plug for all the things. Join our Discord because we now have a Thai Girl Love channel in there and you guys are just going crazy in there and it's so fun to hear about all the new projects, everybody's thoughts. People are reading novels in there. It's a good time. If you're already in there and listening to this, hi, thank you for breathing life into our Discord.
It's a great community now.
It is. It's so much fun.
It's so cool seeing everybody be like, oh, do you know anything about this? Yeah, here's this information. Do you know anything on how to get this? And it's so great. I love you guys.
Yeah, it's really great.
So
cute. So let's all be friends. Come join our Discord and just have fun. We talk about like all the shows that are coming out like week by week. So it's very fun in there. So come have a good time. The link is in our episode description or in our bio. It's all over the place. If you can't find the link, just message us on one of our plethora of social media accounts and we will send you a direct link as well. So don't be shy. We like to talk to our friends. Come be our friend.
We always want more friends.
Always want more friends. If you're looking for more content in general, I've said this plenty of times, become a Patreon. We keep putting more and more stuff out there every single time we come in here.
We don't even need to.
No,
we just keep filming.
We just keep filming. So there's so many things. If you want to know Song's backstory, become a super supporter. We did an impromptu, essentially fan fiction writing of who Sam and Nung's sister Song is, which was so much fun. Go listen to that. That was amazing.
Oh, it's a whole story.
It's a whole story.
A whole journey.
We even named it. It's like, what would her novel be? We talked about that. If you're looking for more Blank content, we reacted to the entire show. All those episodes are going to be on Patreon. We are also just watching other shows. Like, we have all of The Secret of Us will be on there. Eventually, 23.5 will be on there. All of Gap reaction videos. You also just get these episodes earlier. There's no, like, ads or anything. So, like, for $5, you just get all the things early. Plus, we tell our Patreon a month in advance what we're going to be filming and publishing. So, like, if you want to be in the loop and you don't want to pay, just be a free member and you can just keep up with what we're doing. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff there. So thank you if you're still on the journey of Blank, thank you for being here as we get into the second installment of this lovely television show.
Woo.
Woo! Let's get into it.
All right. Should we get into this first episode of season 2?
Yes.
So we pick up with Sam showing up to Big Nueng's apartment to apologize for what happened at the funeral. First of all, I don't really know why she's apologizing, but we'll get there. So
I do.
Sam tells Sam is being Sam. Sam tells her that she didn't think about what was actually going on with Big Nueng the day before at the funeral. Which I feel like the funeral happens again later, so I don't really know what this was.
In Thailand/Buddhist practice, it's a whole process.
Okay.
So there's like, I don't know all the steps, but like there's a whole process and then eventually you get to like the cremation/burial stage. It takes several days to like unfortunately like Faye is actually going through this with her grandfather right now. So there's like stuff on social media. This is a whole ordeal to like get to there's many different pieces to like the passing of somebody in their religious practice.
Okay. That makes more sense then. So Sam tells her that she didn't realize, like, she was doing what she always preached to Sam growing up. Big Nueng was putting up a wall so she didn't have to deal with her feelings in front of people and not showing how she was actually feeling at this moment. And Sam also explains that she should be the one who knows her the best and should have realized that she was being cheerful because she felt sad. And I feel like Sam is like very upset that she didn't recognize this. But I mean, girl, you got a lot going on.
Yeah, like I feel like I understand where Sam is coming from because it's Sam, but also like she doesn't really need to apologize for this because she was so upset. Like she could barely function. Like poor Mon was like physically holding her up the whole evening. So it's like, it's not your fault, Sam, but I understand. She prides herself on being a good family member and like being a good sister to Nung. And she's like, oh, I wasn't there for you. And I feel bad for that. But it's like, Sam, it's okay to like need other people to be there for you when you're upset. And like, no, I feel like Nung was trying to give her that at the expense of like Big Nueng feeling her feelings basically. And Sam's like, I'm sad you did that. And it's like, no, Sam. She was being a sister to you in that moment, even though she's being a dick, because that's kind of how she deals with drama.
She deals with sadness by being a dick.
With her conceal, don't feel behavior. And like, Sam's like, oh yeah, that's right. You do that. My bad. I missed it.
Well, was it Sam who realized it, or did Mon like and her have a conversation later that night and Mon helped her realize it?
Literally, probably that, because it's wild that Sam went from being so completely devastated to being more put together the next morning. So you're right, Mon probably like talked her through all this stuff and was like, well, your sister, I know. Remember saying when you were an asshole when we first started dating, and it took me so long to figure out why you kept being a contrarian nightmare. I think that's
and
what
your friends had to tell me that you mean the opposite of what you're saying, so they were freaking out when you said you didn't like me.
Yeah, I remember how you told me that your big sister Nung taught you that. Maybe that's what she's doing, Sam. Yeah.
But I don't think Mom would say like maybe that's what she's doing. I think she would just bring up this story and be like, hey, you remember that time, to get Sam to realize it on her own? Because she doesn't want to tell Sam what to think. Anyway.
Valid.
So Sam then mentions to Big Nueng that she is the last family member of her family. So like it's just the two of them.
Yeah.
And like honestly, I feel like it's probably the last thing that Big Nueng needs or wants to hear right now. She is struggling with losing people, and this fear is even more heightened right now. Like, she's just losing everybody in different ways. And it's just a lot.
No, it's a lot for both of them.
Yes.
And what I love about the scene is that when Sam tells her that, she's like, hey, basically, we're all we have left. Like, Nung does this thing where she, like, holds Sam's hand and just kind of, like, processes that, like, in silence for a minute. And Sam basically is trying to link the fact that Sam is trying to link the fact that they're the only family they have left. So Sam is basically like, we, of all people, need to know each other the best because, you know, we're the only family we have left. And I think part of what Nung is sitting with in this moment is that who's the person that showed up at her apartment last night proving that they actually knew her the best? Well, that was Little Nung. Like, Little Nung read Big Nueng's behavior immediately, and that is why she came over to the apartment. And it took Sam a full, like, 12 plus hours extra to be like, oh, that's what you were doing with Mon's help, as we established. And I think Big Nueng is trying to sit with that for a minute, and, like, whether she likes it or not, like, Sam is not the person that knows her the best at this point in her life. And as a good sister, I think she spares Sam of that truth, but I think that's something Big Nueng is dealing with in the aftermath of the fuckery that went down earlier this morning with Little Nung.
But also, that's what happens when you grow up and you're not constantly around these people anymore. And when other people are with you more, they're gonna know you better than the family who used to be the ones to know you the best. And also, Big Nueng has been away from Sam for a while as well. So this is really them connecting again.
I think that's what Sam is freaking out about. Like, Sam is, like, afraid of losing Nung, her only other family, because, yeah, Nung did say, fuck this shit, I'm out, to the family years ago. And Sam has been the one who's, like, trying to get her to reconnect. And so at the whole display last night from Big Nueng really looked like she was pulling away and being very detached from all the family stuff. And I think that scared Sam, because I think Sam is really afraid of losing Nung. And I think that's why she's so clingy with Big Nueng in a lot of these scenes in this episode. Not just because of the grief. And yeah, Sam literally needs a hug for sure. But I think part of her is afraid of losing Nung. And she's like, I need to hold on to you while you're here. Because what if you disappear from my life again? Because that's what happened. And that's sad. And I think to Sam, she maybe part of her feels like, well, I'll be the only one, period. There's no family to hold together anymore. It's just these two. So like Sam's life really changed in a big way when the grandman passed. Like a lot of the responsibility she felt and all that stuff kind of just like disappeared with the grandman, and all that's left is Nung, whatever that means, And I think Sam is kind of trying to deal with that. That's a lot of change for her to process.
Yeah, and something else that Nung needs to hear at this point is when Sam asks if they can just stop fighting. Because neither one of them want to be fighting.
No.
Like, they both are family people. No, like, even though Nung did leave the family, it's because she couldn't be who she is, and that was really, like, a huge sacrifice she had to make to just be able to live her life. But you can tell that she loves her family. Especially in this episode, you see the real feelings come out. And Nung tells Sam that she never wanted to fight with her. And then she finally apologizes to Sam as well and tells her that she never wanted to hurt her feelings. And I'm so glad that Nung also apologizes. This Nung is a lot more mindful of people's feelings in blank rather than the Gap Nung.
Yeah, the Gap Nung to me just read as very young and immature, which is weird that she was in her 30s when that happened, because she doesn't read that way at all. She reads like a young 20-ish, very immature person.
Yeah.
It was weird. It's just weird.
But I love that this show really does value communication more and mutual respect. Like, that's a big thing. Like, they could have easily made it be that Sam apologizes and Nung just accepts and pretends like nothing happened. But they do let the characters process in their own ways, and both of them own up to their participation in this scenario. Like, it's not just... So, going back to Gap, it was a lot of, like, one-sided conversations with Sam and Mon of, like, the fights that they had, when there were some times where it was both of their faults and they both should be apologizing to each other, but it's just one person apologizes and the other one's like, okay, everything's fine now. But the communication between both of them is showing that both of the characters growing and getting to a new place and really getting past it, rather than it just being a Band-Aid apology.
I agree. The communication is the big thing I love about this show, and the way they let them kind of process everything you just said. One thing I don't understand is, okay, so in this where they're like, they apologize to each other, which, okay, the apology thing too, like this is the conversation that Nung wanted with the grandmam and was denied forever. Like, if the grandmam had just had a conversation like this with Nung, we could have resolved all this bullshit. And instead, this will weigh on her forever now. So, like, that's the curse of the grandmam. That's what I'm calling it. Okay. In this conversation, too, they apologize to each other, and then they hug, okay? And, like, Big Nung pulls Sam, like, into her chest. And for the love of lesbian Jesus, how did Sam not see the Hickey on Nung's neck from this angle? She's, like, staring at her neck, and, like, the collar's open. But later she spots it across a room. I'm like, is Sam just so out of it in the scene? She's like, my sister's apologizing, like her brain can't work. She's staring at her neck. Sam.
But
Sam's
which
so
side
useless.
is it on? Because I remember it being
It's on
the
left side. It's on the side she's staring at.
No, she's staring at her right side.
Oh. But it's right there. No, I'm pretty sure it's on Faye's left. Because that's where little Nung was kissing her.
Yeah, so this is her left. If she's sitting like this and Sam's on this side, she's on her right.
Sam is on her right, staring at her left. the
How is she
Hickey,
seeing over there though?
it's here. It's like right under the collar's open.
Oh,
It's
I
like
don't know.
here.
Okay, it is
It doesn't
Sam.
make
She can be
it's
very
Sam.
oblivious.
I think it's Sam, and she's useless. But damn, Sam. It's on display in this conversation. Just go back and watch the scene.
Well, but she can't notice it yet because we have to have the other scene. All right, so
Suspend
all
the
right,
disbelief.
yes, you have to do that quite a bit in some shows. Anyway, Nung notices that Sam isn't okay because, anybody with eyes could see that. And Nung has been so focused on not breaking down in front of people that she didn't see how much her sister was hurting. Like, she did, but seeing how small Sam kind of looks right now, being like clinging to Nung, because this is her last family member. And Sam is a huge family person, so reason why she's stuck with the grandmam all this time, even though the grandmam was getting in the way of a lot of things in Gap. Like, I'm impressed that this woman kept this relationship. I just feel like this was an awakening moment in Nung, that she has been so focused on her own emotions that she really hasn't been able to see how things affect other people in general. And we do see this start to change in the next part with little Nung, because Nung does care about other people's emotions, and she's always cared about little Nung's emotions, but it has been because of how other people treat little Nung, not how she's affecting her. So this is going off of the Sam thing a little bit. This is, and sorry, trying to make sure that this makes sense. So Big Nueng has understood little Nung's emotions because of the other people affecting her, and it's easier to see the bigger picture when you are just a third party in the situation. Like, when you're watching TV, it's easy to be like, oh, this is what you should be doing right now. But if it's you, you're like, oh no, what do I do? And when it came to their relationship, however, it was always Big Nueng thinking of the same situation with little Nung and her family, that she didn't think about what little Nung needed from her. So she was always like trying to pull away because that's what little Nung's family wanted. She wanted to make sure that that family dynamic was okay, with not really noticing that little Nung really just needed Big Nueng. So she only just began to accept her feelings for little Nung. So these emotions are still new for her, of like, I guess, like, she's finally accepting, like, oh, I do feel more for little Nung. There's no way around this. And she's still learning how to protect herself, let alone someone else.
Yeah, she's in the what is it? The Alcoholics Anonymous. She's in the acceptance phase. She was in denial for a while. We did the bargaining, did all the things. She's finally getting into acceptance. And I'll bring it up in other scenes. I don't think it's true that she doesn't think about little Nung's feelings. I think she thinks about her feelings a lot, but it's more long-term thinking versus like short-term thinking, where she's like, yeah, little Nung's upset now. Or like Sam, she's like, yeah, Sam's upset now, but in the long run, Sam, that's what she was doing at the funeral. She's like, yeah, sure, you're upset now, but she's like, crying is not going to bring her back. She's like, but in the long run, you can live in the palace with Mon. Like, think about the long-term implications and how your life will be better because of this. Like, Nung thinks long-term. And with little Nung, there are moments when, like, little Nung needs her, but she's like, if you cling to me, you will get attached to me. And then in the long term, you'll be hurt by this relationship that we're having. So, like, she does think about the feelings, but it's always, she's very willing to sacrifice the short-term gratification for the long game. That's Nung's mentality. But in this conversation with Sam, you're right, where she's shifting to be like, how can we think of the long term and the short term and like deal with them both, which is new for Nung.
Okay, fair. Back to the actual scene. I derailed us a little bit.
No, that's important.
So when Nung realizes that Sam's not okay, she's like, have you eaten? And Sam shakes her head and tells Big Nueng that she has lost her appetite. So Nung tells her that she will find something for her to eat because it will be troublesome if she faints at the funeral.
And of course, Big Nueng immediately offers food because, like, love language. And she really loves Sam. And, you know, this little moment, it's a very tiny exchange, but it gives me hope that, like, they'll be okay in the long run, the two of them, because they're, like, dealing with their emotions now and then being like, okay, let's build our family dynamic again. And I think what Nung is also doing, because she very much dotes on Sam in this scene, and she is more explicitly like the big sister looking after her little sister, which is what Sam needed the night before. And Nung was doing, but she was doing it in an emotionless way because she was trying to protect herself from breaking down at the funeral. So here she is being very, like, more in her own feelings with Sam, and there's, like, nobody watching them, so they can be more themselves and real with each other. And I think part of why Big Nueng is so quick to jump on taking care of Sam, A, because she loves her, but B, because she's upset about what has happened with Little Nung several hours ago this morning, and I think she's avoiding her own feelings about that by focusing on Sam, you know, as a
I mean, that's
method
easier
of avoidance.
to do.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, here's somebody else with grief. Let's focus on your grief, Sam. Yeah.
But you know what? She can't escape it for very long. No.
You can never escape Little Nung. That's the thing.
Because as Big Nueng is getting ready, she notices that she got a hickey from Little Nung the night prior. Oh, I wonder how that happened.
Oh, if you forgot, we get the flashback of how it happened in this scene.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm glad that she has to be reminded of what happened because she needs to realize that her actions were not okay.
No, it was the most unforgivable thing that she does.
Yes. And to make things even worse for Big Nueng in this moment, Sam enters the room. Because someone else has to witness this to be able to hold Big Nueng accountable for her actions. So Nung's first reaction to her walking into the room is, why didn't you knock? Or like, why didn't you make a sound? And
I'm having a private gay moment, Sam. How dare you?
Sam is just stealthier than Big Nueng. But, you know, in actual, she did call Big Nueng a couple times, and Big Nueng was just lost in her thoughts because
she's
gay.
So out of it. Gay.
And sad. Sad gay.
Sad gay.
But of course Sam notices the mark on Nung's neck.
It's the size of Jupiter. How could you not? Sam, how did you not see it earlier? Your face was in her neck. Don't get it.
It wasn't relevant at the time, Theora. But Nung's response is to just ask her to pretend like she didn't see it. Because, okay, that's possible.
I mean, was that not her response to Little Nung? She's like, pretend it didn't happen. So she's like, Sam, also, you have to pretend this didn't happen. This is her avoidance thing.
That is true as well. But Sam agrees because this is a pick your battles type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's not something that needs to be dealt with today. But she does file it away for later. Because she's Sam.
Yeah. But don't worry, this will come up again because Big Nueng and Little Nung are both down bad. And if either of them went to the gym, they'd be crying there.
Damn it, Theora. Alright.
What?
I don't know, it just every time you bring up a song, it throws me off. So just know if there's ever a pause with me just laughing, it's because it's a Taylor Swift song. Then, Sam asks Nung if she's going back to her palace. It's officially Big Nueng's palace, and this is the first time that someone talks about the palace as hers, and Nung looks at herself in the mirror. And to me, this looks like she is trying to see herself. She's asking herself, is she really ready to go back to that life? I mean, 1,000 more questions also have to be going through her mind because her life just completely changed overnight in like every aspect because she just ruined the best thing in her life as well. that again, that's something different. Anyway, and she can no longer run from this life that she was running from because like it is her responsibility now. I don't understand how it's still her responsibility because she did walk away. Like she fully cut ties, and I don't understand how it's not all on Sam now. But anyway, I feel like with her stare in the mirror, she's also trying to see if she can even see herself living in the palace again.
Yeah. No, that's that.
She's
That's
like,
the
who
thing.
am I?
Yeah, no, it's valid. Seriously, who is she? She's going through her like quarter life identity crisis, kind of at this point in time. I think also Nung was like, free rent, first of all. If I go back to the house, free rent. My question is though, like, did the grandmam leave Nung the palace? Like, how did she get the palace? Like, did they go through the will at this point and they're like, oh, Big Nung, the palace is now yours in the will, and you get all the servants and everything too? Or are they at this point where because I don't know the procedure of like the funeral and like when you get to the will part where like they legally divide all the wealth and stuff? Because in the prior scene in the end of 106, they're like, hey, everything gets cut in half. That was their assumption. So like, where did the palace fit into that? You know, did they
or
share
was Sam just like, you can have the palace, I'm sick of paying your rent?
Yeah, or I wonder if like they're not at the will stage yet, and Sam's assuming it's Nung's because Nung is the eldest, and so she would get the property because she's still legally the grandmam's granddaughter. So like legally, she's in the will, unless the grandmam was like "fuck you" and cut. Could you imagine if they're assuming all this shit and then the grandmam cuts Nung out of the will? I think it's very clear.
What happened in my family's life?
No, like that happens.
Yeah,
so
it does.
But I think that was not going to happen by the way the grandmam, when we get to the palace and you see certain things, it's very clear that the grandmam was holding out hope for Nung this entire time. So I think these are valid assumptions. And Sam does know the grandmam the best, so I think she probably knew what was in the will, I would assume as well, when the grandmam started getting sick. Yeah. I'm sure the grandmam looped Sam into all this stuff.
She probably helped plan things out because it seemed like they knew it was coming, and it wasn't like a sudden thing.
Right. And so I wonder if like this was the grandmam's Hail Mary. She's like, if I give Nung the palace, maybe she'll come back.
If you give Big Nung
a palace, free rent, and the bitch will, and with cooks, the bitch will come back. Like, yeah. So I wonder how this kind of actually went down behind the scenes. Because like, what an assumption to be like, it's yours, Nung.
Yeah. Okay, so then we head over to a funeral?
At part of the religious process, yeah.
The next event thing. Big Nung is looking around, just taking everything in. And when she looks behind Sam, she sees that Mon is right there supporting her. And then she looks over her other shoulder. And I feel like a part of her is expecting to see little Nung, but no one is there for her. I mean, Auntie Nim is there, but it's not the same. Like the first one, Mon was there for Sam, but little Nung was still there for her. And now she has to face that she ruined the best thing she ever had.
I mean, Chet showed up.
Okay, I just saw that note, and I was like, I did not notice that he was there.
Yeah, because when she looks, she's looking to where little Nung was sitting, basically the last time, and Chet's there. Her grandmother, little Nung's grandmother, doesn't show up. She's like, I did my social duty, goodbye, but Chet keeps showing up. And, like, little Nung has every right not to be here. Like, that girl is humiliated and crushed right now. She has every right not to show up here. But I agree with you. I think Big Nung misses her, and that's why she's looking back. And in this scene where she's looking back, can we have a moment of appreciation for Big Nung's super gay watch that she's wearing? Like, where did this jewelry come from? It's so gay looking. Like, if you look at it compared to Sam's, it's a very lesbian watch that she's wearing.
Oh, hydrate for Big
Nung. So again, hydrate for whoever dresses Faye in this show. Good job.
We would love to talk to you if you wanted to talk.
It might just be Faye dressing herself, which also, like, good job, girl. You got style.
All right, we'll
down.
talk to you, Faye. Like, we'll take that as well.
The dream.
Yeah, so that makes more sense now that I know that Chet was there. I just like to block him out completely, apparently.
Valid.
Yeah, so I was just trying to read into it that she was looking at Mon being there, but I feel like it could also be that. But when she turns back around from looking over her other shoulder, she looks even more defeated in general.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't look great during this whole scene. There's a scene at the beginning where if this procession or ceremony first starts and she's looking at the picture of the Grandmam, and Nung just looks haunted, like, being here. It's very, like, I feel like it's a surreal moment for her because, again, she never expected the Grandmam to actually die. And here we are at the funeral, and it's literally just her and Sam, and I think she's starting to feel loneliness again because, you know, when she did cut ties, like, yeah, she felt it was the right thing to do. She felt self-righteous about it because the Grandmam owed her a fucking apology and still does. But Nung was lonely and isolated that entire time. And I don't think she fully realized it until little Nung came into her life. And she's like, oh yeah, I guess I have been, like, really lonely. And I think that emotion and that realization is starting to hit her in the aftermath of what she did, you know, at the end of last season. So I think part of her looking defeated is her feeling hurt and lonely, and she's regretting what she did, but there's nothing she can do to change it. All she can do is just sit in silence with all this anguish in this ceremony where you have to be quiet. And it's sad, but this is her pattern, right? Isolation is something that's familiar to her. It feels safe because nobody can hurt you if you're by yourself. And really what she did last night with little Nung was the complete opposite of her safe and familiar patterns with people. So she's just very, I think, out of sorts and is trying to process all these things that all kind of happen all at once. And just, I think the loneliness aspect is starting to really get to her because, like, the Grandmam is gone. Like, the her enemy, like, the person she spent so much energy, like, fighting with is gone. That's a big loss. Even if you don't love the person, like, that's a big loss. Like, now what does she do with all that extra energy? And then, like, you know, Sam has Mon. So Sam, after the grieving is done, won't rely on her as much. She has Mon. And then what does that leave Nung? Like, Nung's person that she confided in is now gone. So I think she's starting to feel really, really alone. Like, even in this room full of people, she still feels unsupported and stuff. And I think that has never bothered her before, but I think it's starting to bother her now because, like you know, like you said, Kaitlynn, she knows what being supported is like now. And to lose it is, like, worse than never knowing it, you know?
Yeah, she's losing so much all at once.
Yeah.
And not all of it was out of her control. Like,
I think she felt like it was, but we'll get to that.
Girl. Anyway. So the next scene we get is Big Nueng, Sam, and Mon going into what I thought was the Grandmam's room, but I have been corrected by Theora, and it's Big Nueng's room. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I thought it was the Grandmam's room, because the rooms do look different. Despite how many times I've watched this, I still got it wrong. Anyway.
It's okay. Like, when you come into the room, what's interesting about it is the key, like, the hint is that they come into the room, and even not knowing what the Grandmam's room looked like, if you look, aspects of the room are covered in cloth to keep dust off of it. One of them is the easel, and you can see it. And so it's like, this is Nung's room. And if you look at it, it's like the grandmother was preserving this room. So when they come in and Sam's like, it looks the same, it's a big hint that, like, the grandmother was, again, this was the Hail Mary. She was preserving this room so that for Nung, when she came back, like...
And did not throw out that easel then.
No, she knows she loves art. She didn't touch her stuff. She didn't throw things away. I think she was just holding on to Nung coming back. Like, it's a sweet sentiment, and I think but, like, girl, like, you had every opportunity to make things right, and you didn't do it. So, but she was preserving Nung, basically, in that moment of time.
But I think the first thing we need to do before we talk about anything else in the scene is hydrate for Faye's tears, because they are hovering once again, and absolutely perfect.
She's the master of the hovering tear. Damn, girl.
Okay, so like you said, Sam mentions that everything looks the same. So I'm assuming that like no one's gone into this room since Big Nueng left and they just covered everything. Maybe the servants have like just kept it up,
Yeah.
but I don't think the Grand Man would have gone in.
No.
Sam definitely didn't.
I assume Song's room also looks like this.
I'm assuming that. I'm curious to see Song's room. I don't think we do.
No, we never get to go. Oh, no. We do. Later in the season when Nung is dealing with the Song stuff, she goes into Song's room.
Okay.
To break
down. I haven't got that far again in my rewatch, so.
Yeah, we do see Song's room. We don't see much of what's in there to like get a personality out of Song, but we go into the room.
It's something.
It's something. It's a crumb. I'll take it.
And then Sam hugs Nung and tells her that she misses the Grand Man. And this is when Nung admits that she does as well. And they're just hugging. And then Mon just slowly comes over to join the group hug. Like, first of all, it's like, it's kind of humorous the way
I love how she does it. Yeah. How she does it is so funny.
She just like, I don't want to be left out. I'm just going to saunter my way over there. Hi guys, I'm here too.
Okay, but also how she hugs them is really cute and very Mon. So it's not just that she's including herself. She comes over there, she's basically hugging Sam because she puts her head against Sam and then it's just like, I guess, Nung, and puts her arm around Nung. It's mostly Sam.
Like, I need to be there for Sam, but Nung, I guess you're part of the family now too.
Yeah, no. They're basically their own little family unit and they're very cute.
Oh,
it's very sweet.
Okay, so then later that night, Big Nueng actually goes to the Grand Mam's room, let alone at first. And Faye is once again doing her Oscar-worthy tears.
Give her an award.
You just gotta keep... I don't have enough water to keep hydrating for Faye. I need, like, a gallon bucket for these episodes. But seriously, we talk so much, I definitely do need a gallon bucket.
I hope she had a gallon bucket because of all the dehydration that must have went on filming these episodes.
Faye, we have so many questions for you.
First of all,
yes.
Congratulations on just existing. And second of all,
yes,
she's hovering tears, ma'am. Hovering tears, ma'am.
It's not existing. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Nung is staring at the Grand Mam's portrait, and this whole thing is just heartbreaking.
It is.
And she says, "I'm back." And the way her body language is while saying "I'm back" is as if she's telling the Grand Mam, "Well, I came back. I finally did what you wanted." And she's just having to deal with the fact that it's too late. And she didn't know she would feel like this for not coming back sooner. I mean, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm not going to be sad when this person's no longer in my life. It's easy to say that because the person's still there. But you never know how you're going to feel.
Yeah.
A whole different world.
No, that's so valid. And the other piece of that too, I agree with all that. The other piece is that it goes to demonstrate that the power anger has of really concealing rationality and then masking your other emotions as well. So when you're so like seeped in that anger, it's really easy to get lost in it. And so like once the Grand Man passed, all the anger went away and Nung's like, oh shit, now like all the love I have for you, the good times come back, like things like that. So like, you know, things Nung probably never let herself feel after she left the palace, and that's a lot. That's a lot. In addition to like the grief of just like losing somebody you were, you know, close to or meant something to you, regardless of how the relationship was kind of at the end. Like that's a lot of things that she wasn't processing. She's now processing all at once, and like in the grandmother's room of all places, like that is a lot.
Everything is a lot right now for her. Like this.
Yeah, but also like the "I'm back" line, I love it too, because to me, it's a double meaning there as well, because Nung was running from all of this for a really long time and trying to reinvent herself or like figure out who she is. And I think it's part of her is saying like, I'm back, like I'm me again. Like it's kind of like the full circle of like, I was lost, now I'm found kind of thing. I think that's where Nung's arc starts going once she gets back in the palace, because she is changing her behavior. She's going to face all the bullshit head on now instead of like running from it, because a lot of her pattern, especially with Little Nung, it's very evident with Little Nung, a lot of it's running in a way to like prevent problems. But here she is facing a bigger problem that's been in her life for a really long time, which was like the family stuff, this palace, the grandmother. And she's, unfortunately speaking to a painting, but she's facing all of that stuff and like owning her piece of this, fallout at least, versus she kind of wasn't owning it. She was more so being like, grandmother, you owe me a fucking apology. And then she never got it. So Nung easily could spend the rest of her life being mad, but she's like, that part's over now. I have to move on. I'm the one that has to keep going because I'm the one who's still here. And so let me make peace with all this stuff and move on. So.
And then Auntie Nim enters the room and asks Nung what she should do with it. And Nung tells her to keep it like it was. And then she continues to tell Nim how she thought her grandmother would stay with her forever. And I think her wanting to keep the room the same is her trying to hold on to her grandmother and make it so it feels like she never left, but she's just starting to realize that she really is gone. Like, she knew she was gone, but standing in the room with it being empty, all that's left is this portrait of her to actually look at her, and she's like, she's never going to step foot in this room again.
Yeah, that's a lot to process, and it fucking hurts, and it just comes in waves and things like that. And I like that Nung is doing this because that's what the grandmam did to her room. These two are very similar. They were always very similar. So I love that, like, that's what the grandmam did with Nung's room, and Nung is doing the same thing right back. So it's a way to, like, pay amends as well to the grandmam. But I wonder, because Nung, again, at the funeral mentioned the superstition. I wonder if Big Nueng is really superstitious, and maybe she's hoping the grandmam her ghost, will come haunt the room. And so, like, the grandmam won't leave. She'll come back, haunt the room, and be like, you didn't clean the drapes right, or whatever.
Oh, she is now part of all the lesbian ghosts in that palace.
Right.
So she will forever be around, because there's a little bit of queerness in there somewhere.
Absolutely.
That was our gap theory. That went into the loyal. It was the whole thing. You got to watch all of our content to know what we're talking about. Or listen. Okay, so then Nim tells Nung that the grandmam is still in her heart, and she puts her hand on Big Nueng's heart. And it was such a sweet thing, and I feel like Nim kind of feels like a stand-in grandmother. And the way that Nung covers Nim's hand looks like there is so much love there. Like, she's not a touchy person herself, but when she does love somebody, she will let them and cling onto them as well, like hold onto it. And I hope that Nim will be able to help Nung heal in time, but she's the connection she still has to the grandmam.
Yeah. And they're like basically family in a way.
Yeah. Which makes other scenes hurtful later on. But
also good.
So even later that same night, Nung is lying awake thinking about everything she lost. So she first thinks about how Mon was there. Okay, so I thought that this was Mon being there for Sam. And then she replays the scene of her breaking little Nung's heart. Because she should. Because it was an awful, awful thing to do. And right now, Big Nueng is just regretting her actions all the way around. I think the death of the grandmam really kicked her in the ass to see that nothing lasts forever and you need to take advantage of the time you have. There's nothing more so that tells you that than a death from someone you know.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love is that while she's like, because she's crying, she's like thinking about, basically she's like, I miss little Nung. That's basically what this is. And what does she do? She hugs her little stuffed animal, which is adorable. But also it's like, call back the gift she gave little Nung too, the stuffed animal. This is also something she does Because she has no one to hug her at home, and she's crying, and, like, so she hugs the stuffed animal. Like little Nung would do, which was real sad and cute.
I mean, you could have had an actual person there to hug if you didn't screw things up that morning, but different story.
We'll get into that. She had her reasons. I understand.
So then Big Nueng gets an ominous phone call.
From Folk.
And, yes.
Which,
she says...
How does he have her phone number, is my question.
I feel like she gave it to him for emergencies.
After he was stalking Little Nung, she's like, here, just in case you ever need it. Just, when did
because
that
then
happen?
He became friends with her, and she's like, this is my inside informant.
I guess.
She's not going to hire the mob like Chet does.
Just because she broke. But she would if she had money. Anyway, so he calls her, and she's woken up out of this crying fit and is worried because she's like, what the hell? What's wrong? It's really late. Why are you calling me? And then she basically like gets out of bed and gets dressed real fast. So, all right, before we move into part 2, I just very quickly want to go back and talk about Thai funerals because I feel like we didn't really get into that when we should have. Okay, so I looked into this a little bit more to explain the differences with the funerals. If you're not familiar with this, like I wasn't watching this. So in Thailand, the main religion is Buddhism. So and that religion talks a lot about reincarnation. So in Thai tradition, when somebody passes, the funeral is the way to symbolize their rebirth into the next life. So it's more of a procession to get them ready for their reincarnation versus like, I guess in Christianity, atheism, whatever, it's just like, well, you're dead now.
Well, you're dead.
You're dead. So after death, there's a couple of things that happen. One is a bathing ceremony in which relatives or very close friends will pour water over like one of their hands. And I bring this up now because the importance of like bathing and how intimate that really is does fit into like the very last episode of the show. So I'll bring that up again later because there's a scene later where like Big Nueng is bathing Little Nung, and that's a sign of how close the two of them are because it's a very intimate practice. So because because in funerals it takes several days, what they do is after the person passes away, they embalm them to prevent the decay, and then place the body in a coffin surrounded by like wreaths, candles, incense, and usually a photo. So like in the show, we do see that. So the room they're in with the funeral like has like the grandmam's picture, the coffin, all the ceremonial wreaths, incense, etc. In this religious practice, like there's monks. Those are like the officiators of kind of like the religion, basically, and they will chant 1 to 4 times a day, kind of depending on the practice. So that's why they're always kind of like in the room with the monks, and that's a way to again prepare the soul, prepare the body for the next life. And so how long does this normally take? So what I found is that typically in northern Thailand, the cremation will take place within 3 days. So there's like the bathing, the chanting, that kind of stuff, and like in 3 days there's the cremation is like kind of the end. Sometimes it's deferred up to a week to allow distant relatives to travel and show their respect to the dead. Royal funerals, which is where we're at, can be more prestigious. So like the more prestigious the person, the more time sometimes that will just pass as a way to just like honor this person before they are reborn into their next life. So sometimes it can last weeks to months. There was one royal family member, I forget when in time this happened, but it was like a year.
Oh
to
my
honor,
God.
Yeah, to honor this.
Was this dead person just laying in a coffin for a year? I mean,
yes,
obviously, like, people are laying in coffins for years, but like not.
Yes, literally.
Wow.
In like a big temple for like a year is like a very prominent not religious person, a prominent royal family member, 1 year. So that is not where we're at in this show.
With my research, I also looked into it because I was like, we should have more information on this. So I figured out like there's many different types of like events, if you will, and that it starts with a wake, and that will last between 1 and 3 days, and then it's the funeral, which will last between 3 and 7 days, unless you're a really prominent royal family, and it lasts a whole freaking year for you, which, wow, they must have been loved.
A very powerful person. I forget who exactly the person was. I didn't write, it was a man. I didn't write his name down, but yeah. So, but it's a way, again, to show how important this person was in their life and how much honor the family is bestowing upon them. So I imagine with the grandman being the big, powerful figure that she was, that this took longer than your average ceremony because she was wealthy, not beloved, but feared. Beloved maybe by Sam, but like, yeah.
Beloved and feared.
Beloved and feared, yeah, exactly.
Belovedly feared.
We're afraid of how much we love her, okay?
No, we're afraid of how much we love Big Nung.
That was to quote Michael Scott from The Office. But yeah.
Oh, never mind.
I know. But also, yes, I have our love for Big Nung. So, anything else to add about the funeral piece? Because, I realized that was very insensitive of us not to look into that more.
There's definitely some things that I'm going to be more mindful of looking up as we go through, because we definitely got past, doing as much research as we probably should. Because, this whole thing is we are learning about the culture, but nothing specifically about this. For me, there is times when afterwards, they would also read rites,
yes,
religious rites, and that can have multiple different things throughout the year as well, on anniversaries. So that's the last thing I learned about.
There's also this wild practice. So because in the scene in the finale of season 1 where Nung was like, that bitch died on the 1st of the month, so she's gonna haunt my ass for sure because I'm number 1. Something that they'll do, which I thought was funny when I was reading about this, is because there's a lot of superstition involving with numbers, dates, and things like that. So sometimes they'll fudge the actual death date number, to make it, I forget why exactly, but it has to do with just them, getting reborn into a better life or things like that. There's a reason they do it, but they'll fake out to the monks. You obviously can't change a death certificate, but they'll fake it out in a religious sense. Because I don't remember why, but I was like,
because the monks not perform it if they die on a certain day.
No, it's not that. It's more to set them up for success in the rebirth process. So they fudge the number for some reason, which I thought was really funny because number superstitions are a thing. Not making fun of it, but I thought that was it's such a human thing,
Yeah.
So
because you want what's best for your loved ones,
exactly,
even after they die.
It's such a human thing. But officially the death certificate doesn't change. It's more we say it enough it was
have
real.
A lot of power. You don't know, someone who works in that office.
You never know. Anyway, so let's get into part 2. So where we left off, Nung gets a call from Folk, and then she's like, oh God, what's going on with little Nung? So she gets dressed in her white button-up, which never is a good... Every time somebody's wearing one of those shirts, it's never good. So she puts on her doomsday outfit, essentially, and rushes out to this bar to save little Nung. And she proceeds to reenact the Taylor Swift song Betty, because Betty, I don't want to make assumptions. Are you going to tell me to go fuck myself or make out with me?
Yeah, I
what's
was
gonna happen?
No. Because she's showing up to little Nung's actual party, but she is partying.
I just showed up at your party.
Is she gonna have her?
Me? Would you want me? Would you tell me to go fuck myself? Basically, all of the above is what little Nung does. But little Nung is living all too well right now because she had her heart completely broken, and she's just trying to forget about Big Nung and just be happy for a minute. And then she sees her and she's like, oh yeah, this is why I was drinking with these randos. Anyway, poor baby. That song, all too well. If you've ever been through a big breakup before, that song, it's so real. The emotions in that song are so real. And it's this scene with little Nung is just that's what she's feeling. All of those things. So go listen to that song, any version of it. The short version, the long version, just, it hits a nail on the head.
If you want to learn the words, start with the short version. Because if you jump into the 10-minute version, it's not going to go well.
It is my favorite song of all time. But yeah, it's so real. I feel everything in that. I've been through that. I feel everything in that song. It's so real. Anyway, it's what little Nung is going through right now. And Big Nung too. She just, is more stoic about it. Anyway, so Big Nueng arrives at the bar, and she runs into Folk who's like, what is he doing at this bar? He's just like waiting for her to show up. I love this. Anyway, so she's like, where is she? No, hi, Folk. It's just like, where is she? And Folk's like, she's in that pile of dudes.
She's in that.
Big Nueng looks horrified. Horrified, because dudes. And also, like, what is Little Nung doing? Like, she's just like a wild child. Like, she's never seen this side of Little Nung before. And I think Big Nueng is, like, not ready to face her either, because think about what she was just doing before Full Call. She was, like, in her Little Nung feels crying herself to sleep, hugging a stuffed animal. So, like, this is a lot for her, too. Like, she's here to help, but, like, I don't think she was ready for this, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so then we get a glimpse of this bar also. And later on, when Big Nueng and Little Nung are fighting, Big Nueng says she had to come save Little Nung from this unreputable place. And, like, is it that bad? Like, look at this place. I've been to shadier Waffle Houses than this place, okay? And if you don't understand the context for that, look up Waffle House chair on TikTok. Did you watch this, Kaitlynn? Watch this right now.
I didn't. Okay.
Watch this right now. This is shit that goes down at Waffle Houses.
Oh, no! How she caught the chair.
Basically, like, okay, so if you've never heard of the Waffle House Avenger, basically this employee, the fights break out at Waffle Houses because they're open 24/7. And drunk people go in there. And so one dude was starting a fight at a Waffle House and threw a chair at the employee, and the employee catches it like Captain America. And, like, there's fan art about this girl everywhere because this was such a cool moment.
That's amazing. No, she fully, like, not even a like, it was like
no blinking. She catches the chair and she's like, bring it, and the dude's like, oh fuck.
No, that was great. But yeah, no, those Waffle House workers are not getting paid enough to get a chair thrown at them.
No, not at all. Exactly. So, like, this bar, tamer than a Waffle House, okay?
But I also, looking at this bar, I feel like this is probably the go-to bar for normal people. But Big Nueng is just used to bougie-ass places because Sam takes her there. Or it's because it's not a gay bar, and that one might be valid.
Yeah, she's like this unreputable place where men hang out. How could
Straight men.
Straight men. Yes, must clarify. The cishet men. So valid, Big Nueng. All right, regardless. So, again, Big Nueng is not ready for this, but she has to. So she takes a moment to, like, psych herself out before confronting Little Nung, because I think she's just really nervous to be in the same room with her, but gotta do what you gotta do. And I want to say, in the book, this shit went down way differently. So, like, what is time in this show? So, like, Kaitlynn, if you had to guess, how much time passes between the last time these two saw each other? Based on
I
the
did
show?
Math for this.
Of course you did.
So this is why I looked up the funeral stuff. Because she last saw her when the Grandmam first died. Okay.
Correct.
So I needed to know how long these events take place. Now, I didn't even think to look into royal people. So now that kind of, like, changes this thing. But for normal people, if the wake lasts between 1 and 3 days and the funeral is 3 and 7 days, it has been at most a week and a half.
Yeah. And it doesn't, like, read that way when you're just watching it. Sometimes I lose myself in these shows and I'm like, what time is it? Like, how much time has passed between some scenes? In the book, this goes down differently. Like, months have passed because at this point, Big Nueng is living in the palace and the Grandmam has already been cremated.
Theora, I have the answer. The timeline does not exist.
Yeah. It's the ultimate gap, if you will. It's the time.
I need someone to make an edit with the Mean Girls thing. Like, the timeline does not exist.
Yeah, literally. But, okay, so the reason I'm bringing that up is because the stakes were a lot higher in the book when this went down, because Little Nung's grandmother also calls Nung, and she's like, hey, she's been coming home late for weeks, and some nights she doesn't come home at all. I thought she was with you. Like, that's how worried people were, is like the grandmother who's afraid of Nung calls her and is like, this has been going on for a while and she doesn't come home some nights. And then Folk is also like worried, and we get the explanation for how, actually, I just reread the book, so I figured out how he gets her number. He gets it from her apartment complex, which is, why would you give that to a stranger? Which is weird. That's how he actually gets her number. I know, isn't that weird? I feel like you should never give out your tenant's phone number to strange children.
Is that legal in Thailand? Because, like, I'm pretty sure that's illegal in America.
Right. I was like, well, shit, that's fucked up if it's that easy to get people's information.
Especially a royal. Like, I don't know if they knew she was royal, but I feel like they had.
They didn't. They didn't.
I don't know. Okay.
But either way, that's weird. I don't care who you are. Anyway, that's the explanation for how he gets her number. Okay, so yeah, stakes are a lot higher. So, like, indicating that, like, little Nung was doing this partying thing and going home with, quote, friends for weeks, which is higher stakes for Big Nueng, which is really what motivated her to be like, oh, fuck, what is she doing? Jealousy, etc., safety concerns, etc. Okay, so here we go. So Big Nueng psychs herself up and she's like, fuck it, we're doing this. So she, like, I love the way she, like an Avenger, busts into this room and just, like, breaks up the circle of children or, like, young adults, and just, like, immediately confronts little Nung. And little Nung is super wasted. Never forget that.
Little Nung is big wasted.
She's big drunk in this scene. And she, in this moment, thinks her drunk ass conjured her ex-girlfriend. Because she's like...
that would happen.
Yeah, she's like, wow, I must be really drunk if you're in front of me right now. And I think she does things like touch her face and stuff to be like, are you real? Or am I just, you know, drunkenly conjuring the thing that I'm upset about? And Big Nueng is like, girl, you're off the rails. You need to go home right now. But little Nueng's not having this. Rightfully so. She's like, what do you mean? Remember, I'm a college kid. I'm a kid. You keep calling me that. This is what kids are supposed to do. They're supposed to let loose and go to unreputable places or whatever. Like, this is what you wanted me to do, right?
She's not wrong.
She's like, well, if I don't have fun now when I'm young, when the hell am I supposed to do this? And, like, she keeps, like, giving Nung these, like, challenging looks to be like, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me, this is what you, like, implying, like, this is what you wanted, right? This is what you wanted me to do. You wanted me to explore the world, whatever the fuck that means. Well, this is what the world looks like. And, you know, you want me to meet new people and mingle and do whatever I want. Like, you can't get mad at me. You don't own me anymore, right? Remember, you dumped me.
The one at the end, though, was the best. Because I was like, oh, you're really playing it. She's like, oh, yeah. I'm using what you told me against you. Oh yeah, yeah. This is petty little Nung, which is great. Because remember, she's always been petty, but this is like peak pettiness. This is some Taylor Swift shit. This is exactly what Taylor Swift would do, right, little Nung? This is why Taylor Swift would be a fan of this show.
Taylor Swift would love this show. It's like all the shit she would do for sure, and then write a song about it. Although little Nung would be like a songwriter in this show and just write songs about all this shit. She would write. This would be Betty. The whole show, the song, would come from this. But it's pretty clear that, like, little Nung is in pain because what Big Nueng did was gross. I understand she had her reasons, but, like, she just broke a perfectly good heart, and here's the fallout of that. And I think all these, like, challenging smirks and the fact that she's saying all this stuff to be like, this is what you wanted me to do, right? I'm doing it. I think this is cathartic, number one, because heartbreak. But I think what she's doing with the challenging smirks and stuff, I think she's very desperately wants a reaction from Big Nueng, because here she is out of the blue. They didn't call, they haven't texted each other, and Big Nueng just shows up out of nowhere. And she's like, seriously, what are you doing here? Do you still care about me? Is that actually why you're here? Because you have a weird way of showing you care about me. And I think what she wants as confirmation that Big Nueng does care is she wants her to be possessive and jealous, because apparently that means I love you to some people, I think she's just like, have an emotion. Honestly, I think she's just like, have an emotion, because you're always so stoic or you're just hot and cold. And she's like, have an emotion that shows me you care. That's what she's trying to, like, incite. And because she knows that this would hurt Big Nueng, seeing all of this, if she actually cared. And she's like, I was hurt, I'm going to hurt you back. So Because pettiness. Taylor Swift.
Pettiness
right?
is great.
I know. It's so great. I love everything about this.
When you're not involved. I like watching it.
Can you blame Little Nung in any of these scenes? Like,
no.
No.
She's literally telling her that she needs to have experiences. So, like, she's trying to live her life. Because someone just dumped her after her first time.
Yes.
That's wrong.
And being like, it was love. And then Big Nung's like, well, it was transactional. Like, you were girl.
It was rare. It was not rare. She was always there. But
no, but she remembers it all too well. Because how could you not?
That is all too well.
I'm telling you, it is the song. Like, any big heartbreak, that is Little Nung. That was her journey when they were separated. And that's coming out in this scene. Okay. But Big Nung is not liking any of this because why would she? So she freaks out and tries to extract Little Nung for this situation. And then we start with the manhandling of Little Nung that I hate in this scene where she's like a rag doll. And it's like the dude grabs her, then Nung grabs her. And I'm like, this woman is drunk and can barely stand. Can everybody stop manhandling her?
But, I mean, you noted it as well. Little Nung does not resist when Big Nung manhandles her. And it's almost as if she likes it when Big Nung manhandles her.
Oh, she does. She likes it rough. I will say that. If you've read the books, you know what I'm talking about. But she definitely doesn't like the dude. So, like, the dude grabs... So, I just wanted to get the manhandling rant out of the way. But the way this goes down is the dude grabs her. The one she was drinking with. And Big Nung, her panic intensifies. Because she's like, what the fuck is this? But you gotta love Little Nung's first reaction, which is like, ew, a man. And she, like, shirks off the dude in a drunk stupor because she has so much big gay energy that even when she's drunk, she's like, ew, boy.
Oh, she knows she's fully a lesbian. There's 100%. No doubt about it.
No. In case you were questioning that, exhibit
She's the most confident from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And I love her for that. Okay. So then, once she shirks off the dude, Big Nung's like, thank God. And then thank lesbian Jesus, actually. And then she pulls, again, Little Nung protectively into her side, which, like you said, Little Nung does not resist this. She almost just kind of, like, stands there and lets that happen. Because even though they're fighting, it's like, again, she's in a drunk stupor. So, like, her, like, I don't know what this way to say. Like, inhibitions are down. She's less inhibited than she would normally be. So I think it's kind of like, even though they're fighting, it's still, like, Big Nung is still a safe space for her, and I think that she's been spiraling, obviously, just go listen to All Too Well, you'll understand what she's been going through, and it's kind of like a moment of peace to just, like, be in the vicinity of her safe space, even though they're fighting, so I think she just kind of, like, has a moment of peace for, like, a second, where her brain's kind of like, can, like, breathe a sigh of relief, while Big Nung and the dude duke it out, basically. But, because, like, dudes. So this dude keeps persisting, even though he was just very clearly rejected by Little Nung. He's like, what the hell, lady? To Big Nung. He's like, I just, wanted to keep drinking with her and just dance. I didn't do anything wrong. Like, this is what men my age do. This is what children do or whatever.
Men don't handle rejection well.
No, not at all. This man doesn't understand the shirking off was rejection. And he's like, who the fuck do you think you are? Her sister? And Big Nung looks at Little Nung to be like, well, who am I to you now? Because what is their relationship anymore? And, like, does Big Nung even have the right to be here doing this? Like, trying to extract her from, quote, danger and stuff. And the way Little Nung looks at the Little Nung's like, oh, I'm gonna fuck with her so bad. And she, like, basically turns around to Big Nung and she's like, oh no, she's not my sister. She's my mom's friend. Which is just, like, super friend zoning Big Nung in this scene to be like, we are not even remotely close. You are my nothing. You are my mom's friend. That's the box I've put you in now after what you just did to me. Which she was saying it because it's probably partially true in this moment, but also it's more to hurt Big Nung to be like, we're not even remotely close anymore. You're my mom's friend. And then, again, another challenging smirk to be like, that's what you wanted, right? And Big Nung looks crushed. She looks crushed because that isn't what she wants, really. It's just what she thinks she needs to do for the betterment of little Nung, and it's just like, oof. It's not working out well for anybody.
That Big Nueng. It was at that moment that Big Nueng knew that she fucked up.
She done fucked up. Oh, yes. Okay, so unfortunately, the person who feels like they're the big winner in this conversation is the dude. So he's like, fantastic, you're single, and this person has no authority over you. They're your mom's friend. So he, again, manhandles little Nung and pulls her back, and then Big Nung's like, nope, and pulls little Nung back again, and the manhandling pisses me off. Okay, whatever. But Big Nung's like, all right, I want to make this very clear. I'm only going to say this once. I'm going to say it real loud so everybody hears. And she's like, I'm her everything. We'll just say that. And if you watch little Nung's face after Big Nueng says this, it's like, she's like, am I drunk? Or did she just say what I think she said? It takes her a minute to process this thing that she just said out of nowhere. Because think about it. Big Nueng dumped her after sex, comes in out of nowhere, and is saying the thing she wanted to hear since forever. And she's like, what is happening? Right? She must feel like a yo-yo, because she's like, what is happening? You just went from dumping me to being like, you hung the moon in the sky. Like, what the hell is happening? And she's drunk, so like her brain's not really working.
I kind of wish that Big Nueng said that she's my everything instead of I'm her everything.
Well, I think it's because, I agree, I think that would have been cuter. But I think it's because in the conversation he's like, who are you? And she's like, she's my mom's friend. And then she's talking to the dude saying, I'm her everything. That's who I am. So you need to get him to back off, basically. Because if she said she's it doesn't, Big Nueng's challenging this dude. That's why she's saying it like that.
Well, we also have to make note of the fact that little Nung is literally falling over right now and is barely conscious. Again, remember that.
Let us not forget.
Never forget.
Never forget. She's drunk. Okay. But I think also in this moment, she's in shock because what the fuck did Big Nueng just say? And I think because she's in shock trying to process the I'm your everything line, that allows Big Nueng to like actually extract her from the group of rando friends and try and get her towards the exit. But eventually little Nung's brain cells start working and she's like, what the hell? And she like shirks out of Big Nueng's grasp and is like, and then asks the most valid question, why are you meddling in my life? Seriously, like, very why? Fair. Like, this makes no sense. It's like Big Nueng forfeited that privilege when she dumped little Nung. And then here she is out of the blue. So Big Nueng is saying, like, look, this is a shady, we're at the Waffle House at 3 a.m. There's some chairs unattended. This could get bad. So I'm trying to get you out of here. And you need to go back to your grandmother's house, like, and get out of here. And Little Nung refuses. She's like, no. She's like, I already lied to my grandmother and told her I was staying at a quote friend's house tonight. So we're gonna show up there and you're gonna blow my cover. And Big Nueng's like, what the fuck, girl? You're lying to your grandmother again? Like,
why is she surprised though?
She's like, well, I don't think she's surprised that she's lying. She's like, you're lying to your grandmother so you can come to this place? Like, you used to lie to come see me. I'm better than this place. Like, you're putting me on par with this unreputable trash hole. Like, what the hell? But I think the big thing that she's really, really concerned about is because jealousy. She's concerned that little Nung, again, where was she going to sleep? So she already said I wasn't going to come home. And she's like, you're with this dude that's hanging all over you. Where the hell were you going to sleep tonight? With that guy? I think that's what she's really concerned about. She's like, we need to get you the hell out of here so you can go safely sleep somewhere else. Because again, like in the book, that's what made the stakes so much higher. Is like little Nung was kind of like just like dating people at this time, and so like this is concerning if she's not coming home. Like, is she gonna be just like Pingfa? Like,
I thought that's where everyone goes though. Like, I don't keep putting that on her daughter. Like, she's capable. This girl is smart.
Oh yeah, for sure. But, like,
I mean, sometimes shit happens, but...
That's what I mean. It was more like a shit happen situation, because what was Pingfa doing? Pingfa was also getting over Big Nueng.
The thing is, they all made the mistake of falling for Big Nueng in the first
Yes. Big Nueng is a menace to society, is what I'm saying.
A perfect gay menace.
Perfect menace. I get it. I mean, it's just, look at her. Just look at her. Anyway, I understand Little Nung. This is, just go listen to All Too Well, you'll understand. Okay, so Folk, who's listened to Taylor stuff, is like, I understand what's happening right now. And he jumps in and he's like, maybe let's not have the lovers quarrel in the middle of Waffle House. Let's go somewhere else. And Little Nung, who forgot he was there, is just like rounds on him immediately. And she's like, at two Folk, and like fucking shoves him. She's like, I wish we never met and we were never friends. And she like really yells at him and like manhandles him, like physically assaults him. And Big Nueng's watching this like violent outburst from Little Nung. Little Nung, who's never been violent ever. And that's when it really, I think, really clicks for Big Nueng just how hurt Little Nung really is and how she's not herself right now. She's engaging in these self-destructive behaviors, lying to her grandmother, not coming home, just getting drunk with handsy men, putting herself in danger, and also hurting the people who actually care about her, like lying to the grandmother, and then Folk, who was like looking out for her. And I think Big Nueng knows at this point, like, this is all her fault. Like, all of this is her fault, because it is. And I think that's the motivation for Big Nueng to give Little Nung and herself what she really wants. And she, after Little Nung shoves Folk, she pulls her aside and says, if this is your way of getting my attention, like doing all of this and harming yourself and your friends, she's like, congratulations, you now have my undivided attention. I'm highly concerned about you right now. And Little Nung, like, doesn't know what to do with this, and she looks confused, which, yeah, this is very confusing. And she's drunk, okay? She can't rationalize shit right now. So, like, it's confusing, but also, like, encouraging, because this is Big Nueng showing she cares, which is part of what Little Nung is trying to like provoke, is like a reaction, right? And it seems like in this moment that Big Nueng is willing to fight for her, which is all Little Nung ever wanted, because Big Nueng usually doesn't fight, she usually runs away, right? So this is Big Nueng putting in an effort, right? So that's a big deal, despite them being on the outs, right? So after Big Nueng says that, she tries again. She's like, come on, let's go home. But Little Nung refuses and shakes Big Nueng off again. And Big Nueng's like, okay, fine. You don't want to go home? I'm not going to force you. We will not go home. And she kind of like crosses her arms, almost like Big Nueng is like bracing herself for more fighting, because she's at the point where she's like, I'm not going to force you to do what you don't want to do. Like, whatever you want, but I'm not going anywhere. Basically, we're just going to have this out now. Fuck you, Folk. Nice try. But the way Little Nung reads this is as Big Nueng giving up, because she's yielding. She's like, I'm not going to keep fighting you. And to fight means she cares. So Little Nung is really confused. She's like, wait. She's like, no. She's like, no, I'm not going. She's like, if you want me to go, you're going to have to force me, meaning keep fighting. And Big Nueng flips this script on her and says, I know what you really want, and then pulls Little Nung in closer. And you watch Little Nung's like, what are you doing? And then she like pins her with that intense focus that she does, which is the thing I think Little Nung is into, and says, we're going to go to my palace. Because that's really, and keep fighting, because that's what you want. We're not going to go to your grandmother's. We're going to my house, and you're going to stay with me.
Okay, so every time that I see the word palace, my brain immediately switches it to place, because that would make more sense. But no, like, the way that she keeps using the word palace is like, I know that's what it is, but it also kind of exerts authority over her as well, using that term, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, it is. It's another way she pulls rank, quote unquote. They're like, oh man, you gonna take me to your palace? Like, if this was any other time, that would be a move, you know?
You know, if Little Nung was in her right mind,
she'd be into that. Because, like, Little Nung has never really been in the palace before, other than the funeral. Which, put a pin in that, because that becomes relevant in, like, the next scene. Alright, so Big Nung's like, great, you're down with this plan. So she grabs Little Nung and Little Nung's purse and, like, starts heading towards the door. And then says, basically, thank you, Folk, for being a good person. I got it from here. And I think this is the moment that they trauma bond, and this is when they become bros, was this scene here.
I have to say, we need to talk about Folk for a second, because
Let's do it.
first of all, that dude has gone through so much shit with these two.
Literally.
And I know Folk started out as a stalker, but he became a really good friend for Little Nung, and Little Nung needs more people in her life who truly care about her. And I love that she has this friend in Folk, and he doesn't want anything else. Like, he's fully accepted that he was never going to win over Big Nueng, and that she was not interested in him. So he was like, well, I still like you, and I'd rather just be your friend. And I don't even know if he necessarily wanted her like that from the beginning, or if he just felt lonely himself, because he doesn't have anyone else that we see either. So maybe he saw her being lonely by herself, and was like, that seems like a good person to hang out with. And he saw that she was also like stalking Big Nueng. So
he's like, I get it.
Yeah.
That's true. Somebody in our comments, I might have been a Patreon member, I can't remember, brought up the point that, like, Folk from the beginning was concerned about her, which is partially why he ended up at the grandmother's house. Because when Big Nueng confronts him for the stalking, he's, like, outside the gate listening to, like, the grandmother berate Little Nung and looks concerned about her safety. So, like, who knows what he's witnessed and stuff. And, like, yeah, you're right. We don't know. We assume this is romantic, but, like, it doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, from his point of view.
All right, last thing about this scene that I forgot I wanted to talk about.
Let's do it.
Why is the bar so quiet? Like, we don't even get the birds yet. But there's, like, no music. There's nothing in this bar, and, like, maybe that's why it's a terrible place to Big Nueng. She's like, you can do better.
I mean, they overlay music, but yeah, there's nothing playing actually in the bar.
Yeah.
Yep.
You would think it'd be louder in there, but no.
You would.
Very well.
There weren't that many people in the bar also. But, I mean, it's clearly it's not Big Nueng's scene. I would love to know what is Big Nueng's scene. It's probably just being home. She's a hermit, let's be honest.
I get that. No,
yeah.
DJ, remember?
She's a DJ. But she, like, DJs private parties and shit. Let's be real.
That's, yeah.
Let's be real. If she's gonna DJ.
She's a hell of a DJ. In our fanfiction mind.
In our fanfiction. That's what she's doing. Okay, so we left the bar. So the Nungs arrive at the palace. And I think Little Nung sobers up a bit in the car, because once she gets in the palace, she's fighting Big Nueng tooth and nail, as, like, Big Nueng is leading her through. So I imagine they park the car, because this is not a small place, and she's, like, pulling her up the stairs, like, the whole thing. She was probably fighting her the entire way. And then they make it to the staircase, because Big Nueng's goal is to get her, Little Nung, in her bedroom, so they can, like, hash all this shit out and yell as loud as possible, or whatever. And they almost make it to the staircase when Auntie Nim comes out, because her job as mistress of the house is to, like, greet people and, like, do whatever. And I just want to keep in mind, this is Auntie Nim's first time meeting Little Nung outside of the funeral, okay? Because the funeral is, like, you know, she was sad and greeting people. This is their first interaction, kind of like one-on-one-ish. And it doesn't look great when they're screaming and Little Nung's like, let me go! And this looks terrible. And Auntie Nim comes in and is like, hey guys, welcome to the palace. And it's just like, Big Nueng's like, fuck.
Okay, but if you also notice, Nim comes out to see what is going on really quickly. So I'm wondering if it's because it took a lot of effort to get Little Nung into the palace, like you were talking about. And I'm just imagining Little Nung, like, holding on to the door frame and Big Nueng just trying to pry her off of it. And then meanwhile, Nim is in her room thinking she has finally done her duty for the night and is now thinking, what is this bitch up to now?
Literally. Because, like, Big Nueng also just moved into the palace, you know, too. And she's like, they're still getting acquainted with each other again. And she's like, adult Nueng is weird. But I can't say anything. I have to follow protocol at all times. All right, so Big Nueng's like, shit, this looks really fucking shady, because it definitely does. She's like, I'm with this strange young woman who's drunk, crying, and yelling. And who knows what time it is? Because remember, Big Nueng left at like 11 something. Who knows what the hell time it is now when they're getting back? It's the middle of the night, right?
I mean, it looks like she drugged her and kidnapped her.
Right. It doesn't look great. And true to custom, Auntie Nim's like, I don't know what it's not my job to ask questions. I'm just here to be like, you have a guest? Do I need to make up a guest room? Because that's what the palace is. There's a bunch of rooms to host people. And Big Nueng immediately is like, no, that's not necessary. And she makes up this lie. She's like, she'll sleep on the couch. It's totally fine. Do not go through the trouble of doing that, because Big Nueng's just trying to get her in the bedroom so they can just hash all this shit out. And Little Nueng looks pissed when she says the couch line. She's like, this bitch, you dumped me, you put me through all this bullshit, and you're gonna make me sleep on a couch like a cat? Fuck you, Nung. Because Big Nueng's just trying to get Auntie Nim out of the room. Oh my god, but Little Nueng is pissed. She's like, this is such a slight. I can't fucking believe you. And this is kind of just her thinking, wow, Big Nueng does not care about me at all. She just feels pity for me and is treating me like a child, basically. Because I think Little Nueng also thought on some level she was headed for Big Nueng's room. And was kind of like, okay. But anyway, so Auntie Nim's like, I don't know what this is. I don't want to know. Whatever, master of the house, I'm just going to go back to what I was doing and hopefully go to sleep with earplugs on. See ya. And she pieces out of the room.
Yeah. Poor Nim. Like, she's like, I don't get paid enough for this shit.
No, she definitely doesn't. But she, like, again, this is a house with rules and protocols, and it's like, even if rules are crazy, you just go with it. And she's been there long enough, so she's like, the less I see, the better. I'm gonna just go. I'll assess this again in the morning. So Auntie Nim fucks off. And then the Nungs get into their big fight. So I have to shout this out now, and I'll point it out when it comes out. Kudos to Faye and her voice acting in the scene, because, oh my god, the heartbreak when Big Nueng really gets into her feels is amazing. And it starts almost immediately. So when Little Nueng is trying to leave, Big Nueng calls out Nung. Like, she uses Little Nueng's nickname, not her full name, which is a sign of intimacy and kind of like where her headspace is at in this conversation. And her voice sounds very urgent and very shaky. Like, she's just out of her mind worried about what she's seeing in Little Nueng, because she, obviously cares about her. But Little Nueng she's pissed. She's pissed about all of this, because all of this came out of nowhere, okay? She wasn't expecting any of this tonight, but here she is in the situation. And she's like, keep your sad sofa. I am a strong, independent woman. I don't gotta deal with this. I don't need you, okay? I was doing just fine. Getting my club life on. And what the fuck, Nung? And now you're gonna make me sleep on a sofa? Fuck you. And Big Nueng gets all serious in this scene and drops Little Nueng's handbag, okay, in the middle of the room. Please put a pin in that, because they leave it there. And then she's like, okay, you want to fight? Let's fight. Gloves off. Like, do your worst, Little Nueng. And Little Nueng is big mad that Big Nueng went after her, like interfering with her life, which is valid. But Big Nueng was worried she was in, quote, such a place, which, again, there are shadier Walmarts in America, Big Nueng. Like, this place was totally fine. They didn't even have music, like Kaitlynn said.
Yeah. Something I noticed was that Big Nueng has, like, a really tight grip on Little Nueng and is just pulling her around. Yes. And I understand that she is frustrated and is trying to keep Little Nueng safe. But I feel like this is counteractive, and could invoke, like, a flight response as well, making the situation even worse.
Yeah, so for me it reads, yeah, I agree with all of that. It reads as like possessive, which again is what kind of where little Big Nueng is being possessive in a way in this scene. But the way I also read it, and I don't like it, is she's like removing agency from Little Nueng by like manhandling her around. I don't like the manhandling in this scene. I understand why it's happening. I don't love it. It makes me uncomfortable to watch this from Little Nueng, who's drunk and the younger one in this scenario. If Little Nueng was manhandling Big Nueng, it'd be different because their power dynamics are different. But yeah, Big Nueng, we're in her house, her palace. She has all the power in the scene. So for her to manhandle Little Nueng makes me feel uncomfortable just because of the power stuff that's going on. I understand she doesn't mean it to be like aggressive, but it kind of is in a way. Okay, but again, big thing. Why are we here? Big Nueng was concerned about where little Nueng was going to sleep that night. And she asked, she's like, where the hell, if you're going to sleep on the sofa, which you're not going to sleep on the sofa anyway. I was trying to get rid of Auntie Nim, whom you just met. She was like, where the hell were you going to sleep tonight? You were getting wasted. It was the middle of the night. You lied to your grandmother and said you weren't coming home. Where were you going to sleep tonight? And little Nueng doubles down on the friend thing. But Big Nueng knows she's lying. And I think that hurts Big Nueng because little Nueng has never openly lied to her before. She's seen little Nueng flippantly lie to her grandmother and be like, who's this strange woman? She just asked me for directions. I don't know her. But she's never openly lied to Big Nueng ever. So little Big Nueng, I think, is feeling what it's really like to be in the friend zone. And she doesn't like it at all. She does not like being friend zoned here. It's making her mad.
She did it to herself.
Hey, yes. This is the the consequences of your own actions, Big Nueng? Yes. That is what's happening. But this is one of those scenes where I really feel for little Nueng, like hardcore, this scene here. Good job, Yoko. Like, oh my god, this must have been so hard to like act out because it's just so emotionally charged for her. So this line of questioning about the friends and where we're going to stay really gets to little Nueng. Because, again, she lost her safe space. She feels like she has nothing now. And so she asks Big Nueng, she's like, well, where the fuck did you expect me to go? What do you expect me to do? Like, because, like, her safe space is totally gone when she lost Big Nueng. She's just spiraling in her grief. And, again, this is the all too well thing. She's seeking gratification elsewhere. Like, which is what Big Nueng said she was doing when they slept together, right? She was trying to escape her grief. And like, which translates in the show as, quote, vent your feelings. It was like, replace the bad feelings with something good, right? Temporarily. And that's what little Nueng is saying, is basically doing also. She's doing what Big, took a play out of Big Nueng's book. I was like, well, let me try that to see if that gets rid of my grief. The problem is that like little Nueng has no support system. She's never had one, okay? I mean, you could argue that Folk is like the only one. She doesn't see it as a support system, but like really Folk is the only person she has, and he gets her out of this situation because she's lucky enough to kind of have him at this point. But I don't think she sees that. She's terribly alone. Like, she doesn't have a Sam to go talk to. She obviously cannot talk to her grandmother. She's still lying to her. So she doesn't have people she can like reliably blow off steam with in a safe environment. So what did she do? She sought out strangers who were fun, who could take her mind off of this, right? Because you just go to a club and you get drunk and you get rid of all your bad feelings for a temporary amount of time and you're just there to have fun. Like, that's what she was doing. And it all roots from the fact that her self-esteem is really low at this point because she was, treated like trash. And I don't think at this point little Nueng cares what happens to her at the end of the night. That's the scary part for Nueng, because little Nueng is, quote, putting herself in these dangerous, potentially compromising situations and doesn't seem to care what happens to her. And from little Nueng's point of view, I think that's partially true. I think her motivation is to just escape her heartache for just a little while. And if she could do that, then whatever happens, and that was worth it. So I do understand that mindset from her when I've been very heartbroken like that before and I've done stuff like this. So like, I understand where she's coming from in this scene and how she feels. And she's just trying to escape by any means necessary and does not care what happens to her. So it was lucky that she had Folk who turned into this ride or die for her off screen and was worried enough to contact the person he thought that she would listen to, because he saw she's not listening to her grandmother. She doesn't listen to Chet. I mean, Chet was still in contact with her. She don't fucking listen to him. And she wasn't probably listening to
Nor should
Folk.
she.
Nor should she. You should never take advice from Chet. But Folk was probably like also trying to be like, hey, maybe let's not. And she probably wasn't listening to him either. She's like, it'll be fine, Folk, whatever. So he's like, let me get into contact with the one person you listen to. And obviously she did not feel comfortable confiding in him about what actually happened with Big Nueng, because how could she? First of all, it's humiliating. Second of all, like, they had a secret affair situation going on. Like, she couldn't confide in him. So, like, he had no idea that this was going to blow up. Like, because she didn't tell him.
It's just a terrible situation all around, and it would have prevented if somebody didn't do one action. And then after this, Big Nueng, I'm going to say, has the audacity to ask her, why did you do this to yourself? Why do you think? Like, you literally did the worst thing possible to her.
Yeah, I think part of Big Nueng is not taking ownership of what she did. Because I still think she is trying very much to cling to the fact that, like, this is what's best for you, to, like, move on from me. But then seeing how Little Nung is moving on is not... It's putting Little Nung in danger, you know, in her mind. Like, in harm's way. And Big Nueng, I think, is just like, I don't want you to move on. Like, she's waging that war between those two things, you know, still. Okay? She hasn't come to fully accept the truth of it all, okay? Sometimes the truth is hard for people to grasp. All right. So then Little Nung gets real honest with Big Nueng and tells her, I mean, why did you do this to yourself? She's like, I got dumped heartlessly. Basically calls her a monster. And she's like, and I'm heartbroken. What the fuck did you expect me to do, Big Nueng? And I think part of the problem is that when Big Nueng was like, again, she's a mess. She's a messy 30-year-old. It's just that happens, okay? And when she kind of like did this plan of like, I done fucked up by sleeping with her. I fucked everything up. Let's just end this, okay? So that you don't get too attached. I don't get too attached. Let's just move on our separate way. Big Nueng has no idea what heartbreak is. Okay, that's part of the problem. So I don't think she had any idea how she was gonna feel, or what Little Nung was gonna do, because she's never been in this situation before, and I don't think she knows. So, but here she is witnessing the aftermath of that and seeing somebody who's clearly heartbroken and engaging in destructive behavior. And then she's like, I don't like this. I like this less than the scandalous affair we were having, basically. And what Big Nueng is asking when she says, why are you doing this to yourself? What she's asking is like, why are you beating yourself up? Like, you didn't do anything wrong. I did. I'm the reason. She's like, you should be attacking me. And she says, hey, if you're mad at me, like, take it out on me. I'm the villain. Like, and I think, because again, we've been saying this since the beginning, Big Nueng still has this like self-loathing aspect of her character. So I think that she does want Little Nung to take it out on her, because I think she feels like she deserves it, because I think on some level she knows what she did was cruel. That's why you saw her crying at the end saying she's sorry when Little Nung couldn't see it. But I think she's starting to really recognize that she did more damage than good when she chose this decision, and when she decided to kind of like push Little Nung away. So instead of being like, stay away from me, now she's like, no, come at me. Like take it out on me. I deserve it. You do not deserve this at all. But Little Nung's response is interesting, I think, to Big Nueng, because Little Nung looks offended. She's like, what do you mean, take it out on you? Because taking it out on you would involve, one, seeing Big Nueng, which is clearly challenging for her to do. Sometimes that is the worst thing when you're trying to get over somebody, to be around them. That's terrible. That's kind of selfish what Big Nueng is asking a little bit. Two, she's asking Big Nueng to actively hurt the person she's still in love with. And three, if she went through with it, Little Nung then becomes the crazy ex-girlfriend. So, Big Nueng, girl, what? This is a terrible suggestion. I understand what you're saying, but like, poor Little Nung. So Little Nung honestly asks her, again, a valid question that she's asked her own family members and is now asking Big Nueng, which is, have you ever thought about how I feel? Which I hate that this girl is constantly asking this to the people in her life that are supposed to care about her the most. Remember, she's at dinner, she's like, Mom, have you ever thought about how I feel? Now she's here saying it to Big Nueng, which is just poor little
Yes, it's really sad, because like no one's ever really putting her first. And like, I understand that Big Nueng is technically thinking about her, but she's still putting her family before Little Nung. It's not just Little Nung.
Yes and no. In her brain, she's putting Little Nung's future first. So she is. Like, I think... So I'll bring this up when we get to another scene later, but yes, Big Nueng does care a lot about how Little Nung feels. She's just thinking in the long term. She's like, it's better for you in the long term if you see the world and don't just fixate on me and have me limit your experiences. Because it's one of those things where it's like, if they get together now, and then what if little Nung has regrets later and be like, oh, I never got to like sow my wild oats or like travel or do stuff because I was with you, old lady. You know what I mean? Like, she's worried about those kinds of things. What?
Wild oats?
You've never heard that expression? Sow your wild oats. Oh. It means just like date around and things like that. It's an old fashioned.
I've never heard that.
How? It's such a common like turn of phrase. Okay, well, sure. All right, so that kind of thing. She's worried about robbing little Nung of her life is what she's worried about, by like limiting her options, essentially. So I would argue she does put little Nung first, but it just doesn't read that way because little Nung is like, well, if I can't have you now, what's the point? It's like a now versus later thing.
I want the cookie now.
Right. She wants the cookie now versus Big Nung's like, have the cookie later when you can choose what cookie you want.
And have a whole cookie factory.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the bottom line is like nobody's really wrong in their thinking. Okay, like Little Nung's point of view and Big Nung, they're not wrong. It's just they both have valid concerns about their situation. Their situation is just very complicated. And the thing is they need to figure out a way to meet in the middle. Otherwise they keep ending up in this cycle where they're hurting each other. Or mostly Little Nung is getting hurt. Big Nung is getting hurt also, but like it's more obvious with Little Nung. So anyway, in this conversation, Little Nung continues and says that she is hurt. Okay? And when she says it, it's almost like she feels all of it and she like sways off balance. Like it's just so overwhelming and is hard for her to bear. And Big Nueng catches her before she falls over. And this is one of my favorite scenes with Yoko. Like, I love her acting choices in the scene. It's so good. So she keeps going. Like, Big Nueng is like kind of holding on to her. And Little Nueng keeps going in because she's in pain right now. And I love when she says, it's what you did to me was awful. And she takes her finger and like pokes Big Nueng in the chest, like almost in where her heart is, really hard. While she basically says, you're a fucking monster, is basically what she says. And ooh, because like, damn, yeah, girl, I'm so glad you did that. Because like, you gotta force her to like confront the truth of what she did and how you feel about it, right? Because Big Nueng is one of those people who gets in her head about stuff. And Sam has called her out in the show about this. So I think she's been in her head a lot about this stuff with Little Nueng. She has not confided in anybody else and is just trapped through her own thoughts. So this is the first time somebody else is really like confronting her with an alternative perspective of what's happened. And I think that like physical like touch, it kind of helps like break through kind of like the mental loop she's trapped in a little bit, where she's like really confronted with Little Nueng's feelings and how she, and what she's saying, right? So Big Nueng's reaction to this is she just like takes Little Nueng's hand and like holds it essentially like over her heart, right? So to me, it feels like that's like Big Nueng's version of like almost swaying off balance, which is what Little Nueng did. And she's grounding herself in this moment. And I think feeling what Little Nueng is like trying to get her to feel. Because, like I said, I feel like Big Nueng thinks she deserves this. Because she's like, hey, attack me. And here she is, doing it.
Like she's done multiple times throughout this series of trying to get people to take it out on her.
Right. Yeah, like, aren't you angry at me, Chet? Don't you want to fight me instead of like...
No, Chet doesn't care about anything except like power and him.
I know, but she has said that to multiple characters to be like, don't you want to take it out on me? And usually the answer is no. But here's Little Nueng kind of doing that a little bit. It's one of the only times that she does do it. I think in this moment, her concern for how broken and Little Nueng is kind of just like trumps everything else. And I think her concern for Little Nueng over her own feelings is what motivates Big Nueng to finally give in to her feelings about Little Nueng. And that's why in a minute, she makes the decision to like do whatever she can to make Little Nueng happy again. And that switch starts here. And this is like the voice acting thing that I love. So after Little Nueng does the heart poke thing, it calls her a monster, Big Nueng does something she's never done before, which is the cute voice. So while she's holding Little Nueng's hand, she says, enough. And if you go back and listen to how she says it, it's the cute voice. It's the first time she ever uses it. It's very like soft, and it's like a higher octave than normal. And this is the cute tone that Little Nung can't resist. Later in the show, she'll adopt this voice, and Little Nung's like, you know, I can't say no to you when you use the voice. She starts doing it here because she's trying to like go take care of her, basically. And I think that that's significant, that this is when it happens, when Little Nung calls her a monster, basically. But Little Nung's upset, rightfully. She's feeling all the feelings, can barely stand up. And so she doesn't catch the tone that's lost on her in this moment, which is fine. And so she just keeps going with the beat me up thing. And she basically calls Big Nueng a fuckboy. And she's like, you did in the book they call it a hit and run, which I think is fucked up. But the translation here is nail and bail. Basically saying like, oh, you one night stand me. Basically, you used me.
She is not wrong.
She's not wrong, but Little Nung is like, Big Nueng is like, she says it again in the cute voice. She says, enough.
But she told Little Nung to get it all out. So why are you saying enough?
I think that Little Nung's pain is making her, it's getting to her. She's like, I don't want you to be, I see how upset you are now. I get it. Let's change that. Because then this is when she starts trying to get her up in the bedroom again.
Oh my gosh, I forgot they're not even out there. Nim's still probably listening. No, Nim doesn't listen because she's probably not. I'm really surprised Nim doesn't listen to this.
Well, okay, so basically after this, Big Nueng finally gets Little Nung up the stairs, and she like protests this too. She's like, don't be stubborn, just come with me to where we can hash this out for real. Okay, so they go upstairs. I'm pretty sure Auntie Nim, I don't think she was listening. I think she was in the room being like, what was that? What is tomorrow going to bring? And I'm pretty sure, again, she wakes up the next morning and Little Nung's purse is still in the middle of the hallway because they leave it there. And I think Nim is like, I should probably get a shovel. I don't know what happened last night. Nung didn't look okay. Those are fighting words I heard. And she's a ride or die. She has to be. She's like, I don't get paid enough for this, but I'm sworn to secrecy to this family, and I'm not here to ask questions.
Some shit already.
She lived with the Grandman for like 800 years.
She probably has
seen some shit.
Closet of shovels.
There's bodies on that property. You can't convince me otherwise. So let's be real. Auntie Nim was ready for whatever the next day, and when she saw the purse, she's like, oh fuck. There's nobody on the sofa, so like something bad happened, and the purse is still there. So her brain is probably like, I gotta bury a body today. All right, I guess.
She did not originally have that on her bingo card.
No,
but it is now.
It's in the contract. You do whatever and don't ask questions. Oof. Okay, so then finally, Big Nueng gets Little Nung up the stairs. And Little Nung is like, why am I in your room? Am I here so that the palace staff doesn't hear about the fucked up shit you did to me, Nung? Probably. To which Big Nueng, also a petty bitch, her stupid ass is like, what do you mean what I did? You're the one that did stuff to me last time we were together, so this is on you. And it's like, girl, that's not the answer to that question. Like, you were not in the right here. Like, now is not the time for weird sex semantics. It's just not time for that. What are you doing?
No, it is denial at its finest.
This is Big Nueng. It's more explicit in the book what's going on. This is Big Nueng floundering. You're right. She's oscillating between denial and acceptance in this conversation. She doesn't know what to do in this conversation, and so she's just like fumbling the whole time and just trying anything. That is actually what's happening here. And Little Nung, again, must have sobered up because she has the brain cell in this conversation and immediately calls out Big Nueng, and she's like, who did what is not the issue here. She's like, the fucked up thing is that we had sex. We did that, remember? And then you asked me to pretend like it never ever happened, even after I told you how much it meant to me. Okay? And this is when Big Nueng goes silent and stays silent for a healthy portion of the rest of this while Little Nung just kind of keeps talking. And Little Nung is like, why are you being quiet all of a sudden? You had so much to say a minute ago, and now suddenly you're being quiet. And it took me a while to figure out what the hell she was doing in the scene, because she, again, does that like intense staring thing and then just doesn't say anything to all this vitriol that essentially Little Nung throws at her and all these questions she's asking, which are all valid questions. And I think what happened was, again, downstairs, she asked Little Nung to take her anger out on her and not for Little Nung to do something self-destructive and beat herself up about the situation. So I think Big Nueng got her in the bedroom so that Little Nung could say literally everything she needs to say, including the specifics of the horribleness. And so she's being quiet to let Little Nung berate her because Big Nueng feels like she deserves it. And what she's not expecting is for Little Nung to essentially be Little Nung and admit that even after all of this bullshit, she still loves her. And she's like, that has never changed. And she's like, I think you're treating me like trash because I'm the only person who loves you. Isn't that right? Like, I'm the only one. And I think once Big Nueng is confronted with that, I think that's when she really has to accept that how real this relationship really is. Like, she dips her toe into the realness and then, like, takes her toe out and is like, whoa, no, that was too much. Let's pretend this never happened. Let's just pretend and just deny everything. Just plead the fifth. But Little Nung is like, this is getting to the point where you lose me forever, or you need to accept this. And she's like, and I see right through you. I understand that you're doing all this bullshit because what we have is real. Like, that's what Little Nung is basically saying. I think Big Nueng, again, is a 30-year-old who gets tired. She's like, I'm really tired of fighting this. And she doesn't like Little Nung being upset. She really doesn't like that. So I think this is also, like, what motivates her here to finally, like, shed this, like, indifference persona and act on her actual feelings. Part of that is to make Little Nung feel better, but also by saying she's tired. She's tired.
She's like, let's just do it.
Yeah. And in this scene, also, like, with this part of the argument, again, this is Big Nueng experiencing what Little Nung hating her could possibly look like. And it's like, it's not fully hatred. So then after Little Nung, again, Big Nueng has said nothing, and Little Nung goes to leave. She's like, again, if you're not going to talk to me, like, what the fuck are we doing? So she goes to leave. But that's when Big Nueng stops her. She, like, grabs her arm and says Nung or whatever. And then she starts caressing Little Nung's face, which is super intimate. Like, the face is, like, a very intimate part of the body. So she starts, like, caressing her face and leaning closer to her. Because I think once there's physical contact, Big Nueng, like, cannot control herself. And she's tired. There is no strength left. And Little Nung is, again, what a night for her. She looks shocked that this is even happening. And because the only time Big Nueng has ever really touched her face was the ice cream incident, and then in the foreplay of them having sex last time, right? So Little Nung is like, what is this? You only do this when it's super intimate. So she, like, snaps herself out of this and is like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing right now? Who are you?
I'm not mad about it, but what are you doing?
We're not mad. We just want to know what's going on. So Big Nueng answers by not answering and instead initiates the most sensual kiss in history. And poor Little Nung. So it's just like this kiss. It's just the way she just, like, doesn't say anything and just, like, does, like, a forehead kiss and then, like, traces her nose along Little Nung's face and, like, pulls her in by the waist and basically, like, kind of, like, demonstrating all these things without saying anything that shows she cares and then how precious Little Nung is to her and that she wants her in all the ways, basically. And then after she, like, basically, like, kisses her breathlessly, says, I missed you. And Big Nueng does not play fair, because what do you expect Little Nung, like, what do you expect her to say to that? How do you expect her to have functioning brain cells after that? Like, and also, like, isn't she still drunk? Like, poor Little Nung. She stood no chance in this scene.
But even without her being drunk, I don't think I'm okay with what's happening in this scene. And, like, I try to think about it from other ways, but I just feel like it's like she's trying to win a fight or ignore everything that happened by telling Little Nung, it's okay, look at me, I am hot, and I can make you forget what just happened with a kiss.
I mean, kind of. Yeah, she is kind of she's trying to evade the fight, but I think the other part of what she's trying to do is exactly what little Nung was doing the last time they were together. Remember when Big Nueng was bawling her eyes out about her grandmother and beating herself up about all of her regrets, and little Nung touched her face, then kissed her because that's what got Big Nueng to stop crying. Big Nueng is doing the exact same thing. She's like, oh, this works for you too? I can't stand to see you upset. Let me make you not upset. Use me to not be upset the way, quote, I used you, kind of thing. That's what they're doing, and it's just a reversal of that scene also. But Big Nueng, again, doesn't play fair. She's like, I missed you. Which is true, because the bitch cried every night over Little Nung. The same way Little Nung cried every night over her. Like, they're the same. And it's clear from Little Nung's reaction that she did also miss Big Nueng, obviously. But she's out here trying to defend herself and make a valid point. So, like, she cannot give in easily to what's going on here. But despite the drunkenness and the most sensual kiss in history, she does have a few working brain cells, because she asks, she does, in the book the translation's different, where she basically does ask what you're saying, are you trying to distract me? Like, she does ask that, and Big Nueng is like, is it working? It's what an asshole. But then she asks again, are you trying to make this up to me, like you're the bullshit you did? So I think the translation's a little off. And of course, Big Nueng, because anytime Big Nueng answers something by not answering something, it means yes. So instead of answering, she starts the sexy shirt button game. Because she doesn't fight fair.
I love your title for this game. But, like, there is no other title for it.
No, that is what's happening.
But also, if Little Nung didn't have drunk brain cells before, she definitely does now. Because what do you do if a Big Nueng just opens their shirt in front of you? You fall over and give in.
Right. Big Nueng weaponizes her sexuality to win fights. She does it a lot, okay? She knows what she's doing. Even though she doesn't know what she's doing. She's trying to stay in denial in the scene, but then it's impossible. Okay, so why the sexy shirt button game? Because Big Nueng is very calmly, she's panicking on the inside. Because here she is trying to toe the line between what is proper, what is best for Little Nung, what she wants, and she's failing. Okay, so she just kissed her a minute ago, which, if you're really trying to, like, stay away from her, is the worst way to possibly do that. And I think Big Nueng was like, that was a moment of weakness again for me, and just like, because she's trying to make Little Nung feel loved also, because, I mean, look at her. So I think in Big Nueng's brain, she's trying to do the quid pro quo thing, the tit for tat thing that they were doing last time, which is like, hey, use me to feel better, because clearly Little Nung has stopped crying, right? She's not as sad. So Big Nueng's like, okay, let's go all the way again to get you to fully not be sad, because your heartbreaking breaks my heart, kind of thing.
Yeah, still not the answer though.
No, but she's basically trying to distract Little Nung, and yeah, she's trying to distract Nung from asking valid questions, and so she's like, let's just play this sexy game to make you feel better, to get off this line of questioning, because she's the master of weaponizing her sexuality. A poor Little Nung. So she starts, like, here's the game. So she starts very slowly unbuttoning the Foley tape. You can hear every button pop. She starts unbuttoning the entire shirt. Says nothing. And then explains the rules. She's like, if you keep asking me questions, I'm going to start buttoning up my clothes. And then this is not going to happen, basically. And Little Nung, again, is just like, what is happening? Am I drunk or is this happening? She's constantly in that situation. Am I drunk or is this real? And she's so vexed, she just silently gay panics and doesn't say anything. And then, which, it doesn't make sense to me, because Big Nueng was like, if you ask questions, I'm going to button up my clothes. So Little Nung's quiet, and then she starts buttoning up her clothes. And then we get this amazing exchange where she's counting and says Nung. And Little Nung gets pulled out of her panic, and she's like, what? And Big Nueng's like, nothing, I was just counting. That just happened to be our name. She's like, song. And then Little Nung's like, wait a minute. Okay, I'm drunk and confused, but I'm not that confused. So, like, no, keep that open. I'm not saying no. I'm confused about what's happening right now. I love that dialogue. It's so funny.
I love this part. It was hilarious, and I'm so glad you brought it to my attention when we were watching, because I did miss it the first time.
That's so good.
But I think they need to have a rule in the future that they are only allowed to count backwards, and they have to at least start from 4. That way we don't think we're talking about any sisters.
I love it. Nah, then you don't get this amazing dialogue.
Oh, we get this, and then in the future.
Okay, but like, how funny it would be if they play this game later and then they're like, Sam, and Sam pops up. What? We're like, oh no! Anyway.
They're like staying over at Sam and Mon's.
Okay. I think Sam would linger awkwardly, and then Mom would be like, Sam, what are you doing? Anyway, that would just be really funny if they did this again. Okay, anyway, so back to the sexy short game. So the game ultimately doesn't work because little Nung refuses to be distracted by this, even though it's distracting. And Big Nueng straight up tells her what's going on. Because she has no choice to stop playing fucking games, finally. Because little Nung is like, is this what you're doing? Is this what you're doing? And Big Nueng finally admits, like, yes, I'm trying to make this up to you because I fucked up. And she admits that she wasn't in her right mind that day. Obviously, which, like, little Nung knew, which is why she, like, was hesitant to go through with it. But, like, she was having a moment of weakness too, where she's like, I also want this, even though I don't think this is the right moment. But Big Nueng's like, no, it's fine. And little Nung's like, I guess, and went through with it. So, like, they both, like, little Nung knew that she wasn't in her right mind. So, like, that's valid, right? And she's like, listen, if I was in a better state of mind, not grieving over my dead grandmother, perhaps this wouldn't have gone down like this. So, like, that is valid, right? Then Big Nueng does this thing where she puts their foreheads together, which is like, super intimate and very sweet. And she admits the thing that she's really worried about. And she's like, the potential fallout with your parents, your grandmother, because they all trust her. And she's like, I've been looking out for you. And this is so chaotic. Like, it's so complicated. And like, there's really potential consequences here that could harm both of us. It's very clear that, like, this, you know, this is weighing heavily on Big Nueng. But little Nung doesn't understand why this is plaguing her so much. Like, she's like, this is our relationship, not theirs. Why are you so worried about this? You know, family is a big thing. This is a very valid concern in this culture. So, like, it's not unreasonable. But little Nung admits, she's like, listen, I love you. I've always loved you. My feelings never change. So, like, that should be the only thing that matters. But like in real life, like, it's a component. It's not everything. This is why Disney lied to us, okay?
Disney does lie to us. Every single thing they put out.
Right. So if you believe Disney, you have little Nung's mindset. Big Nung's like, I've watched other things, okay? It's a component. But she's true. She's, you know, little Nung's upset. Basically is saying, like, why do you always put other people above me, is kind of what she's also asking. And again, Big Nung's big dilemma is learning how to balance her selfish desires versus, like, meaning, like, what she wants versus, like, what's best for everybody else. And to me, this is a pivotal moment for that conflict, because based on Big actions so far in this conversation in the room, she seems very much to be oscillating between, like, what she wants, which is why she, like, kissed little Nung and said, I missed you. That was her just being real. Versus, like, this, the elephant in the room, the family, the age gap, all that stuff. You know, so she, like, gives in and then pulls away. Gives in, pushes little Nung away, that kind of thing. Because I think she's worried that if she is super honest and 100% about how, and is like, I'm 100% in, little Nung will be a forever koala and cling to her literally forever. Like, imprint fully, and that's it. And while that's great, Big Nueng is worried that, like, I'd be wrong. Like, she says it a couple of times where she's like, your life is just starting, and so if you cling on to me, you won't see the world. It's kind of like one of those things, I guess in America, one of the best ways to kind of like describe this is like people who fall in love in high school and then get married and then later on regret it because they grow up and people change as they grow up. And then they're like, well, fuck, like, I missed out on my entire youth because we were tethered together. I think that's what she's worried about. Because, like, look at Big Nueng. She's like, I'm a different person than when I was your age because I went out into the world. I learned to stand on my own 2 feet, and you'd be robbed of all those things. Like, and she's more herself now because she had those experiences. We've talked about that before. So I think she's worried. She's worried that, like, she would be responsible for holding her back, and it would be bad for little Nung in the long run. Even though she's like, we would be happy now, but like later, what if you're not? What if I'm the reason you're not happy later, kind of thing. I think that's valid. And I think that, you know, kind of comes from her own trauma as well. Because think about Big Nung. I think like she was trapped in her gilded cage by the Grandmam, probably, and wasn't really allowed to have true freedom either and truly explore like the world. That's why she had to run away, you know? So I think that's kind of where this is coming from.
She would be ended if little Nung decided to run away from her.
Right. No, that would crush her forever. Yeah, I think Big Nung is also trying to protect herself from that because she's like, if I fall any deeper, like look at her now. She's already like crying every night. Like imagine getting more intimate and then Lil Nung being like, fuck you, I'm leaving. I don't think she could handle that. It would be like kind of like the
She's going through so much loss in the past few years, even because like, she left, even the moment she decided to leave her family, like she's dealt with so much loss. And so it's hard to have anything concrete in her life.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And also like, look at the regrets she lives with now because of the whole grandmother situation. I think she's like, I'm worried little Nung will also have to deal with that. And like, it weighs on her still to this day. So she does care about little Nung and how she feels. It's just, she's like, in the long run, I think you're going to be in more pain. And then I will be in more pain if I get more attached to you. And I think that you could argue that by Big Nung kind of like having these thoughts and doing these things, she isn't fully listening to what little Nung is saying when she tells her flat out, this is what I want you. Which is what little Nung basically says in this scene. And I think that's a valid read of Big Nung's behavior, but again, it's more complex than that. It's exactly what you're saying. She's worried like, well, okay, that's what you want now, but what if that changes one day? And yeah, she doesn't want to hold her back. And Big Nung is worried about getting crushed if little Nung leaves her. I mean, she's already crushed now, and like she did this, you know? So she tries to tell little Nung this in the scene and is like, you know, your life's just starting. Like, you're young. You're going to meet so many people. And like, what if one day you meet somebody who's right for you? And she tries to say that, but little Nung cuts her off with a kiss and basically says, I've already met that person. That person is right in front of me. Like, I don't need to meet more people. I know. She's basically saying, like, I know how I feel. I trust how I feel. Like, trust me too. Right?
Are we there?
We're here.
Yeah, sorry. I thought we were still on the other page for some reason. But, like, didn't they just deal with this? Little Nung tried to go off and be young, but neither of them liked it.
Yes. But again, like, this is just Big Nung being worried. And it's not it's valid. It's a valid
thing. It's not, no, because you never know what's going to happen, and that's the scary part.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, yeah, that is what just happened, and Big Nung freaked out, but she didn't verbalize any of this to little Nung. That's the difference. She wasn't having this conversation directly with little Nung to be like, this is why I did what I did, because I was worried about you. And little Nung's like, I mean, honestly, as somebody who dating sucks, so like little Nung is like, I found the person. I don't want to do this shit anymore. This was stupid. I hated this. So like, honestly, like, yeah, go. This is why U-hauling is a thing. She's like, I want to move in. Like, I was very clear with what I want.
I was clear from the minute I met you. Can I move in?
Yeah, that has not changed. Where is my key? So, okay. And then little Nung, but she seals the deal when she pet names Big Nung and she calls her my dearest. And I think that the pet name is how little Nung actually wins the argument. Like, Big Nung was like, sexy time. Little Nung's like, no, intimate pet name. And that's how she gets the W. Because after that, Big Nung completely gives in because to her, pet names are sacred, intimate things that like are real expressions how people feel, and they're just alone. It's a very private moment. This is what she actually wants, right? This means everything to her. So that's when, like, she fully starts making her intentions very clear with Little Nung and what's going to happen here. And this is when we transition into Big Nung leading the sexy time session, which is different from last time.
Also, with the pet name thing, that's something that Big Nueng has never heard from her before. Mm-hmm. Unlike I love you, which she has mentioned before that Little Nung says repeatedly, and it's lost all meaning. Right. So it probably takes the place of it in her mind. And so she's like, oh, she's telling me she loves me in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's adorable.
This is, it's like being fed food. This is something that I think Big Nueng sees as like really super intimate kind of thing. And like you said, it proves that Little Nung means what she's saying to her. Right? Because she doesn't pet name her very often. She does it sparingly. So then things get very heated. Like, Big Nueng is like into this, like fully in. And then, of course, Little Nung, who still has the brain cell in this scene, pulls back and is like, wait a minute. If we do, I know where this is headed. You're making your intentions very clear. She's like, if we sleep together again, are you going to dump me in the morning like you did last time? Which is so fucked up she even has to ask this.
Yeah. It's so messed up that she has this fear and insecurity. Because, like, that experience was definitely traumatic for her. And if they were to part ways, never see each other again, Little Nung would have been messed up in every future relationship.
Yes.
Because that moment would always replay in her mind. And she needs a therapist.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, again, just listen to the Taylor Swift song, Perfectly Good Heart. Because, holy fuck, she just, took Little Nung's heart and broke it forever. Like, there's no repairing that.
She took her innocence.
Yeah, literally. She did. What's that song? Give Me Back My Girlhood. It was mine first. That's, Big Nueng, that was despicable what she did. It truly was. I understand her motivations, but despicable. Despicable action. What I do like in this scene, though, is after Little Nung finally says this, Big Nueng straight up apologizes and says, I am sorry. I took your confidence away. This is my fault. And I like that she actually, because up to now, there has been no apology. There's been denying this, sexy short games, and her rationalizing why she did what she did, but there wasn't a formal apology for the damage that she did. So I do like that she apologizes not once but twice to Little Nung. And to me, that was great, and probably one of the first times Big Nueng's ever apologized to anybody. Maybe she's apologized to her sisters, like family members, but like this is not a family member. So I think this is probably a big deal too for Big Nueng to even say those words, and she says it twice. So I think that's a big deal.
I do love that Big Nueng points out and asks if Little Nung lost her confidence because of her. And I think it hits her that she really did hurt Little Nung, because Little Nung is visually a shell of her old self. She used to be so happy and bubbly and definitely didn't care what anyone else thought about her, and now she's just lost, like going to bars, not being herself. And the grandmam made Big Nueng lose her confidence over the years, and this is now the second instance of her feeling like she is turning into the grandmam, which, I mean, is the last thing that anybody wants.
No.
And like the first instance of this is when Little Nung called her a dictator because Big Nueng told her that she should study something else instead of communication arts, which she really wanted to. So we gotta break the cycle, Big Nueng.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. Yeah, she's grandmamming the situation in the palace of all places.
It's just, that's the box that she gets put in when she steps into this building.
Yeah. It's very true. She does regress a lot. She does a lot of things where she's like a little kid again. She's hugging the stuffed animal. We didn't see her do that in the apartment, you know? Yeah, I agree with that. But I love that Big Nueng basically promises to do better and asks Little Nung if she'll trust her to, like, do better. And Little Nung doesn't answer this. But she's like, let's make out.
She's like, I'll believe it when I see it.
Right. let's keep doing what we're doing, though. So then Big Nueng takes this is Big Nueng takes the lead, and they make it onto the bed, still making out. And then we get a little glimpse of what Lil Nung is into, okay? And I like this scene with them initially because it's them communicating without communicating, because they are very good at reading each other for the most part when they're not fighting. When they're being, like, vulnerable with each other, which is this scene here, they're good at reading each other. And Big Nueng's in charge. Just remember that. Big Nueng is in charge of the scene. And she does this little, like, chin bite thing. It's like, I've seen it described in other novels as like these little like possessive moves, like these little bite things. That's how it's kind of described, which again, little Nung would definitely be into, and she is. And she excitedly grins when this happens because she's into this. And she learns immediately too. And then she's like, let's see if you like it. And she like basically like bites Big Nung's like bottom lip and gets a very similar reaction. So it's nice to see them like exploring and like communicating without communicating. That's a very like intimate thing to do. And like again, I just love the way they just communicate extremely well with each other, like in all
I feel
the ways.
Like at some times they're better communicating without talking, which I think is a bigger skill than actually talking.
No, you really have to know the other person, because like you hear Little Nung say it, I know you better than anyone, but like this kind of proves it. Like she really, they both do that. They both observe each other and learn from each other. Like Big Nueng will do things where she did it with Chet, where she saw that like Little Nung was uncomfortable with something he was saying, and she'd step in and stop it, because like they can read each other even when they're not directly talking, right? And so this is what healthy relationships look like, is this stuff right here. Okay. Then we get the ground rules of how this is going to go down. Okay, so Big Nueng, who's the top in this scenario, physically and in all the ways, is like, pulls her experience card, basically says to Little Nung, this night's all about you. Okay, last time it was all about me. This is all about you. And I'm going to do things to you you've never heard of before. So you can learn. And then they bang. Good for them.
Hydrate
for that scene. So I love this. I love the part after basically Big Nueng says that, where she like undoes the zipper and Little Nung's like, oh hell yeah, finally. And like her smile, like good for, she deserves it. Just hydrate for Little Nung. I
just wish something. She was fully aware of everything going on.
Yes, I wish that every time up to this point when they've done stuff, one of them is not okay. Because last time Big Nueng was not okay, and this time not in her right mind, and then like Little Nung is also not in her right mind in this scene. But here we are. At least it's equal, because we had scenes with both of them being, one of them not being fully there.
Oh gosh.
Alright, so that's the conclusion of part 2 of this Roman Empire of an episode. And because we've already been talking for probably 3+ hours about half of this episode, we're going to have to end it here. Because I don't know what we were thinking, that we could cover this episode in one episode of us talking, because there's just too much to talk about. So we're going to end it here and then pick up with part 3 and go through part 4 in the next episode, because there's so much. I mean, I love this episode. There's just too much to talk about. It's so good. So I hope you enjoyed ending with top Big Nueng, because that's a great place to end anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's a happy ending.
It is a happy ending. Hydrate for Little Nung. Good for you, girl.
Okay, but if you made it this far in this half of a long episode, we want to know. So today's secret word that we are going to challenge you to use in a comment or a review, especially a review, is the word discombobulated. Because that is how Little Nung is feeling.
I think we're all feeling it. Especially when we get into part 3 and 4. So let us know what you guys thought of this episode. And until next time, I mean, just keep hydrating for this episode. Because good Lord. Hydrate. Because lesbian Jesus is. I can tell you that.
And gay it up all over the place. Because they are.
These Nungs sure do. So we'll see you next time.
They're gaying it up all over the palace.
The palace? Gay it up all over the palace.
Well,
put that in a review.
Palace. We'll get to the entire palace later in the series. But anyway. Bye.
Bye. And with that, we've been Big Gay Energy. If you like this episode, check out all our other episodes right here on YouTube.
Please like, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more amazing super gay content.